Direct snap to Brooks with Conyers next to him. Yep. Direct snap. Brooks to the end zone. Touchdown. Texas Tech has the lead over unbeaten Iowa State with 19 seconds left.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And it's Sanders ripping through the hole. One man might catch him. Touchdown! 52 yards.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Washington's patient, first down and then some. Inside the red zone, and he is into the end zone. 40 yards for Washington.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Out of the pocket. He's going to run for it. Dives! Somersault into the end zone for a Louisville touchdown. Wow.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Tuesday, November the 5th, Election Day, and, of course, also the day that the College Football Playoff Committee will release their standings. We're going to show you one of them in a minute and discuss it a little bit. Hope you've had a great Tuesday, beautiful weather, blue skies, just a little bit of tint of coolness, and, of course, that's where we are in the city of Waco, and appreciate your time on 365 Sports. So, the College Football Playoff Committee will release their top 25. Top 25. And here is Nicole Auerbach, who's now a part of NBC, and she ranked her poll based on the teams, the top four will win their conference. Based on that, as of now, they would win the conference with Oregon, Georgia, Miami, BYU.
Well, yeah, it's going to be conference winners at the top.
That's why, It's so like somebody might say, wait a minute. And again, I'm not saying that it's you, but well, why is Texas or Ohio State behind? Let's just say BYU, who's not getting a lot of, I guess you could say, zap, although they're in the top 10. Well, it's because those are the four highest-ranked conference champions. So those four are locked in. Then you get to the rest of them. The top 12: Ohio State, Texas, Indiana, Penn State. That's three Big Ten teams. Then Notre Dame, Independent, Tennessee, SMU, and also Boise State.
Yeah, I like how she did this. Like, part of my worry was, and it might still be, I don't know, but hopefully the committee will do it like this. But if you're going to put in, if the top four teams get a bye, well, that's the four highest ranked conference champions. That's how you need to rank this thing. And then if what I was worried about is they were going to rank Boise State like 19th and then be like, well, when the group of five team wins, we'll put them in anyway. Well, I don't think that that's right. You need to rank as if these are the 12 teams of the playoff now, as opposed to, the four. Like, let's see what it's going to be.
Don't set up the menu based on right now. If the college football playoff was to start next week, give us the 12 teams and how they would be ranked. That's what you need to do. That's what they've done here. SMU inside the top 12. The ACC has Miami right there, and so SMU is right there under the umbrella. And then, of course, you mentioned Boise State from the Mountain West as the G5 highest-ranked champion. Craig?
Yeah, that's great to see her list, I guess. Seen a lot of different projections this afternoon, and I don't have any big thoughts on it because I'm waiting for the actual real thing. So it's another projection to look at. I guess it's interesting that the Big 12's got one team in BYU, and Iowa State losing last week knocked them into that first four-out category for her. So I don't think that really comes as much of a surprise. You knew they were sort of teetering on thin ice as far as having more than one bid as it stood anyways, but certainly Iowa State losing knocks them out of any talk for at least a little while, and there's no one else really that's a great candidate to be above any of the other teams listed here. If Colorado won out, perhaps it would be them, but beyond that, with K-State also losing, there's nobody that's really a big contender outside of BYU being unbeaten at the moment. So, yeah, ACC's got a couple in there. We'll see if that holds, but I like that it's not necessarily just 10 teams from the SEC and the Big Ten, kind of like you feared it would be. You've got, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, just 3 teams from the SEC on there. And then you've got Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, so the 4 to the Big Ten. So you got 4 Big Ten, 3 SEC, 1 Big 12, 1 independent, 2 ACC, and then Boise State, right? So you've got, I think, questions if you're Washington State about where you fall in this if you were to continue to win, and what kind of love does a school out of the Pac-2 get in the big picture. So I think that's a team to look out for tonight, and I'm just interested to see kind of how they situate them, because you'll hear plenty about how these first ones don't matter, and for the most part that's true because we know year after year, they basically situated how they want to at the end regardless, but this does set the table, and this is the first plate. This is the first course, so I'm curious to see what that plate looks like and kind of how they arranged everything on said plate.
And Boise State, by the way, beat Washington State, so that's one that while they're up there, then Washington State, I'm not saying they're blocked out, but that does not help them with Boise right there with just the one loss.
Well, no, it doesn't, but that is their one loss would be a team that's in the playoff field. So I think that's not that bad of a loss. And I think I'm just talking more long-term. We got a month to go here. If you're looking outside of the Power Four conferences, there's only so many teams that are actually legitimate. It's Boise State, and then it's who? Navy's been knocked out now. They're not in that conversation any longer. Notre Dame, we know, is basically an ACC team, even though they're an independent, so I don't even count them.
Army?
Yeah, I mean, they could be one, but I think another one is Washington State, potentially. So that's just, a team to kind of see where they're situated in the big picture. But, no, they're not going to have a big impression on tonight. It's just another one of those that you look at the whole top 25 and kind of see how it's arranged. I'm curious to see how the remainder of the Big 12 schools, like where is Iowa State after last week? They're a first 4 out here, so they'd still be within reach, but that was a bad loss. Where is K-State? Where is Colorado in this big picture as well? So that'll be all interesting to see, and then kind of see the verbiage that they're using to already sort of justify their rankings. Is there any new tagline like game control that becomes the hip term nowadays, along with strength of schedule and things like that?
Well, do you think any team will get the Jordan Travis standard applied to it at the end?
Well, there's still games to be played.
Yeah.
So in the next week or two, if somebody loses for example, and I don't want this to happen, but let's just go to their conference. What if Cam Ward goes down?
Yeah. No,
well,
I mean, that's
good news for Miami is they have an easy schedule, so they could maybe manage that.
Still win the ACC, possibly if he was to go out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to beat SMU at this point as the front runner to have to beat. But if you're Cam Ward, I don't know. That's one of those that I don't really like to play that game because, I mean, if that were to happen, which there's a whatever percentage chance that would happen, I don't think it comes into play tonight at all. So, I mean, that's a valid question, but I think we'd have to cross that bridge to make it worth actually discussing.
It's not, I don't think, anything on the plate from those teams today, but next week that might change. But also what might change, even though Florida State is a dog when it comes to their history in college football, it did not help them, no matter who the backup was. And you wonder if that would be the case if it gets to a Notre Dame or a Georgia or Ohio State, Texas, et cetera. Texas, of course, with Arch Manning, that would not be under consideration. They would be fine.
I'll tell you this, I bet it's one of the most, well, I don't know if I'd bet my own money, but I wonder what I also don't care about the TV rating for the playoff show.
Oh, God.
But what I'm saying is I wonder how highly this will be viewed because of the 12-team format versus the last few years where you already know, it's Alabama and Ohio State or Michigan, and then it's the 2 other, whoever that is, trendy picks, Florida State, Oregon, whoever. tonight, I wonder if you've got a lot more people watching because there's 8 more spots to fill, and then 10 more teams that feel like they can grab one of those extra 8 spots.
No doubt. I mean, when you have Alabama, A&M, 3 SEC teams on what would be, at least from Nicole's perspective, it might be completely different tonight with the committee, and also might be the other 5 or 10 or 50 projections. It could be different, but that's not a bad list. 3 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten. Eventually, there'll be a couple of that will eat each other up. Maybe doesn't hurt them at all. Not sure about that. But appreciate those of you today who are watching us in 3 different ways. One on Twitter at 365 Sports YT, and I see that. We appreciate you. Also, Sikkim 365 app, and that also will give you the video if you set it up right. And then, of course, on YouTube with 365 Sports.
My one observation on her list is just her list, and it's fluid, but 4 of the top 8 from the Big Ten. So, I mean, and those are all good teams, but that's just what jumps off to me is, I like how even it is across the board. The Big Ten having 4, you look at the team's records, you can understand that. I don't know if they've got 4 of the top 8 teams that are the best in the country, but she's also a Big Ten gal nowadays.
An
NBC,
so,
right. Maybe there's some of that. I don't know.
Good, another media outlet.
She's a Big Ten gal anyway because she's Michigan.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to, put that on her.
Okay, of the 4 Big Ten teams that at least, whether they're in the top 12 or in the top 8, Oregon has earned it. They're unanimous at AP. They beat Ohio State, who's at 5, who then beat Penn State. Indiana is undefeated for now, and I hope they run the table. I really hope so. That would also mean that they beat Ohio State, which would be damaging to the Buckeyes. And then Penn State, probably a little highly overmodulated here, but at the same time for now at number 8.
A little highly overmodulated. They're the overmodulated team. I have no problem defending this to the death. An 11-1 Penn State team, to me, if I was on the committee, I'd be like, they're not in the playoff. I will not vote them in. They did not have the schedule. They would do that shit to Iowa State.
You and your mouth lately.
No, I'm sorry. But they would. They would absolutely do it to Iowa State. They should do it to Penn State. If Iowa State,
and they'll do it to SMU and anyone else.
Exactly. Yeah. But they won't do it to Penn State, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, hey, man, they beat an Illinois team that was ranked in the top 25, and then they beat that other they haven't beat anybody that's currently ranked in the top 25. It's just Illinois. So, that one I don't think holds up necessarily the way that some of the others do. But some of the pollsters disagree. And
Illinois is not ranked anymore.
That's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said that is still. Okay, yeah.
So they beat a team that's no longer in the top 25. And besides that, they have no other top 25 wins.
All right, we will have today on the show, we'll have our Big 12 pod. We'll do that around the corner at 3:40 with the 4 corner schools. Shahan Jaraja, he will join us from CBS Sports. He's the one that wrote the column last week about the Big 12 quarterback tiers, and then also his thoughts about the projection going out tonight, the standings. JJ Joe, Baylor color analyst. Craig's off the radar. Evan Miyakawa. Oh, my God. Baylor got embarrassed by Gonzaga last night, but Texas A&M, Texas, and Baylor all losing on night number 1. He'll join us. John McClain, and also Paul's top 5. We'll get to Gonzaga, Baylor, and college basketball in a minute. All right, so Jaden Mayava apparently will get the start. USC is in a funk. They're playing a team in another funk, and more on them in a minute. These are 2 teams, Nebraska and USC, that are stuck in the mud. But Mayava is going to get the start. He, of course, has also been at UNLV. And so USC with Moss, who looked really good for a long time, but they're looking to get a kickstart. Your thoughts about Jaden Mayava getting the start, the UNLV transfer?
He played really, really well for UNLV last year. So we'll see. He went to try to start. Miller Moss, I don't think, is the biggest problem with USC. I mean, he's just been kind of there the last 4 games, but so is USC as a collective team. So I don't know. Maybe he'll jumpstart it. Maybe he won't. But bad vibes in Southern California right now.
Yeah, he was pretty good at UNLV last year, and that was thought to be a big loss. And they go out and get Matthew Sluka, and then that turns out to be the situation that turned into, where he obviously takes his ball and heads to the transfer portal, and now they're not even fretting it. They're just moving on about their business. But, I thought Maava might be a loss for them, but kudos to Barry Odom for just, plowing on through and not even acting like there was any speed bumps whatsoever to have to worry about. I mean, that's a testament to him and his program, but this is obviously desperate times if you're USC. Not to say you're desperate for putting Jaden Maava at quarterback, but I think you've got to do something to shake up the status quo. It's not working, and so you're hoping that he can give you a spark and give you some of that good stuff that he had for the running Rebs last year. But if you're USC right now, this is not the season that you were planning on having. To now pivot away from Miller Moss, I think it's another blow to your ego a little bit, but you've got to try something out if you're Lincoln Riley. So it only makes sense to hopefully get a little bit of, like I said, a spark from this move here.
And then there is a young man, he's not young, but Dana Holgorsen. He's been all around, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, of course, most recently at Houston. He was an analyst. I was today having lunch with a couple of coaches in high school that were at TCU, said that, they thought he was going to end up helping them. Maybe he did for a week or two like Gary Patterson did at Baylor. But Dana Holgorsen, not only Dana Holgorsen, but also Nebraska's Matt Rule, bringing in his buddy who's been in the studio, our great friend Phil Snow, to give them a set of eyes during their off week.
And you can see where he's been with Matt Rule. That's what I put, was the times he's been with Matt Rule. But since Phil Snow is our friend, he gets his own graphic. He shares with no one. So
no. He is. He's our buddy. So, but Dana Holgorsen knows his offense. I was talking to Joe Gillespie, the head coach at Midway High School. He said the guy knows his offense. He should be able to see a few things to give Coach Satterfield and Nebraska some sort of spark. Whether or not he has time to do it remains to be seen.
Good for Dana getting a little check here and there to go sit in and watch film and figure out problems for programs suffering from offensive issues like Nebraska and like TCU. And I know with TCU is more just like helping out the defense and giving them more of a scouting here. I think he will probably have more of a hand in the actual offense here at Nebraska because they need it desperately. I mean, it's not working out well. And here's the thing, folks. Matt Rule's teams have never been great offensively. Like, they never were like big, splashy, high-powered offenses. They are more Big Ten football, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of offenses, and he leaned heavy on the run game when he was here. And they just don't seemingly have that ability right now to do that. And you've got a young quarterback who's prone to make mistakes because of his age and his inexperience, and he's kind of going through the fire right now. So I think it's become, a pretty glaring issue that needs some attention. And if you got some smart minds out there like a Dana Holgorsen who can help you out, throw him a call and see what he can do to try and maybe do enough to have you win another game and get bowl eligible.
They are, and I know them. I mean, I am not a coach, but I could tell early in the year they were playing at such a high level defensively that maybe that would give them a chance to win 7 or 8 games because, I never have trusted the offense, whether Raiola started off well or not, or Nair, who was fantastic and caught a touchdown in that game last weekend. They can't run the ball. They don't have anybody that's going to go what should be 4 yards that's 8 or no yards that's 2. They don't have anybody. They got a couple of guys that are pretty good, but they don't have anybody that really can give them any kind of oomph when it comes to the run game.
Yeah, and that's surprising. I mean, Raiola will get some good coaching from Holgorsen. That guy knows quarterbacks. He knows offense, so that'll be productive, I'm sure. And some of that's just going to take some time with him. But the run game or lack thereof is definitely surprising because of what I just said a few moments ago. Yep. Matt Rule is a run-heavy guy. If he had his way, his offenses would run, and then just play good defense. But to see a Nebraska offense where they're not really capable of running the ball, and then that means you're relying on a true freshman quarterback to sling it around for you.
Who other teams now have tape on.
Yeah. So I don't know, that's surprising to me that they got caught in that trap, if you will. I thought he'd maybe have planned on that possibility and pivoted and had more of a backup plan as far as a running game goes. But it is what it is, and so we'll see if Dana Holgorsen can give them something of a spark since this is the spark segment apparently. But much like Lincoln Riley changing quarterbacks, go get some fresh eyes on your offense and see if he sees something that'll help.
Yep. The writers, the columnists, those who analyze up in Lincoln and Omaha, they are on them big time as far as both Rule and also Satterfield, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and look, I don't know what these guys can do in this short amount of time, but maybe they can help them get to a bowl game, and then when they're in the bowl game, they can help them move forward. I think when you've got a talent, though, like Dylan Raiola, who Matt has never had a quarterback like that, ever. Like somebody that's that highly recruited that has that kind of talent level, you might need to bring in a different system because – I don't know if he's playing the system that fits him exactly right now.
Who?
Raiola.
Yeah,
no, I think they could, they're not using.
If you can't run the ball, he's not really a dual threat guy. He can run it. He did pretty well against Ohio State, but he's not going to like somebody that's going to get loose and turn the corner. And he's not big, and you saw him get hit in the back late in the game that kept him out for a few plays. But the Matt Rule juice is running its there's no change. But that people are kind of like, okay, you've talked a lot. We bit into it, but here they are in the same position. Who knows? USC, Wisconsin, Iowa to close out their season. Julian Lewis is a heck of a player. Quarterback, highly 5-star. He is committed to USC, but this story from Tom Loy, visiting Indiana this weekend for their game against Michigan. Hey, what Cignetti's doing, catching people's eyes, he has a very fun offense to run, and at least he's going to give a chance to look around and see what's going on in Bloomington.
Yeah, I love this for them. I mean, is Julian Lewis going to commit there? We don't know. He's also visited Colorado. Is he going to commit there? We don't know. But the fact that he's getting these guys in the room right now, I think it's a huge deal. I think it's a really huge deal.
Yeah, this is just more bad news for Lincoln Riley, potentially, as he's got this young man committed and set to go to USC, but clearly he's crossing his T's and dotting his I's and keeping his ears and eyes open to all possibilities, and why wouldn't you, especially if the team you're committed to is struggling pretty mightily and you don't quite know what the future holds there, but at the same time, you're getting a lot of love, and there's a really red-hot program with a fun offense and a pretty entertaining head coach that's making some waves. So, yeah, if you're a big-time prospect and you have any level of interest, why not go check it out and see for yourself? So I think that's nothing but great news for Indiana. Doesn't mean anything other than they're getting a visit, but sometimes when you look at programs that are turning around, it's just simply getting guys you wouldn't have gotten to visit previously that all of a sudden are showing interest in you, and every once in a while you show enough interest, you actually pull one of those guys, maybe pull a couple of those guys. Next thing you know, you're pulling a higher, and just you got to get the ball rolling somewhere. So certainly having one of the best players in the entire country coming to visit is going to be appealing to other recruits, and it's going to get fans excited, and there's just nothing but positives that come with that. So that's big for Indiana, and that's another concern.
I just think him visiting. Don't you think this is an uptick, whether he commits there or not?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. That you simply see guys come and visit was my whole thing. Yeah, it's a big deal to even get him on campus. So another thing where you look at Lincoln Riley, though, and say, man, how sturdy is this house of cards that it appears you live in out in Malibu or wherever it is that he eventually planted his feet out in Los Angeles. Yeah, another thing to just maybe fret over if you're a USC fan potentially.
There's always a bunch of nominations for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award compiled, Craig, and then I'm a voter. There's always it's interesting to kind of watch as the votes come down. But Bryson Washington, Baylor running back, 196 yards, the 4 touchdowns in the win against TCU, including a run at the end of the game that set up a much easier, manageable field goal for Isaiah Hankins, has been named the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award winner. Baylor's now had their name in this mix. And listen, on an offense that struggled for a couple of years, it wasn't something you saw very often, but Bryson Washington getting a lot of publicity after what he did. Keenan Hall sent me a text the other day. I say that this guy's he's got that. He goes, he just knows how to handle, depending on the play call, whatever it is. what he's doing. When there's an opportunity, he's going to take advantage of it. And again, I think he can go matrix and go liquid sometimes when there's just a bunch of bodies in between the guard, the tackles, and the center.
He's the most diversely talented back of the three that they have.
Really only kind of two at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because Richard Reese isn't really doing much, but which someone's going to have to explain that to me, how he's been like.
Based on what I've seen, he's got to play better.
Yeah, I guess so. But where did it go? Like what happened? Because
one thing Bryson will do, and we know Pennington will do this, is he will punch you in the mouth with pass protection.
Yeah.
Not a big guy, but he's thick.
Bryson's got more moves. Pennington has a move. Pendergrass has a move. He used it once. Yeah. But he's not gonna spin and all that stuff. Bryson Washington can kind of do it all. So
I mean, yeah, Dawson Pendergrass is a nice number 2 guy. Richard Reese is just sort of there, and you saw the other night, like they hand him the ball, he gets dropped immediately at the line, it puts him behind the sticks, and like next thing you know, they're punting it back to TCU after all this momentum of running the football. It's like they gave it to him and just momentum stopped dead in its tracks, and I don't think he might have even gotten a carry after that, Richard Reese. But yeah, I mean, I'm a Richard Reese fan, but his high moments were also 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a good year last year, was hardly involved at all. And then he's been passed up now by a couple of guys younger than him in Pendergrass and also now Bryson Washington. So, yeah, I don't know. Dominic Richardson's been hurt all year long. He's basically been a non-factor. So it's really those two guys that are kind of leading the charge right now. But congrats to Bryson Washington. I mean, they are definitely lighting up offensive award list more in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks than they did the entire year a year ago. So that's been a big boost and exciting thing to see. And he was certainly deserving. He thought he might win Big 12 Player of the Week, but Cam Scattaboo had the game that he had. And quite frankly, I do have to wonder. I know that the Big 12, at least the way that it used to go, because I used to have a vote for 1 year. They rotated it. They just reach out and they pick people to help vote on this, and they give you a little thing at the end of the week to just click your selection. Cam Scattaboo's been Offensive Player of the Week 4 times. He's been really good, but 4 times? I don't know. So last week you could have probably made the argument, but he had an incredible game, 100 yards receiving and was it nearly 200 on the ground? I forget the exact totals. I mean, he had a monstrous game, so I'm not saying he wasn't deserving, but damn, I didn't realize it had been 4 weeks that he's been Offensive Player of the Week out of, 9 total weeks? So that's pretty impressive, and going to be hard for anybody to match that with only a month, or it's going to be impossible, really, probably for anybody to match that. I don't know how often somebody's won that many times in a given year, but that's a testament to Cam Scattaboo.
No question about it. Nicholas Braxton, by the way, guys, Lewis canceled his visit to Indiana. That was a story by Tom Loy earlier today, and I just asked Nicholas if he would update us. I do know Colorado is in the mix. Yeah, they have been in that mix too, the USC commit right now at quarterback. So last night in college basketball, the state of Texas, Texas lost to Ohio State. Baylor was absolutely humiliated at Gonzaga in a game that was very late last night. And also A&M lost to UCF. And this is what UCF put up today, or put up on their Twitter feed. Winner. It just means more is part of the deal there. UCF with a win against one of the higher-ranked teams, at least now, in what Texas A&M has with Buzz Williams. That's a great win for UCF. Kendall Kaut put this note up about Gonzaga. I can't remember Baylor ever giving up close to that kind of total, 1.4 points per possession. Middle to late second half defense was the softest I've ever seen from a Baylor team that ran through Gonzaga, or that ran where Gonzaga had open threes, often open threes after open three after open three in the second half. I watched part of the game, then eventually at halftime just kind of turned away, didn't miss anything else because that was an absolute humiliation last night. Craig, you stay up late. Did you watch that?
No, I don't have anything on the Baylor thing. I mean, I have some thoughts, but I didn't stay up to watch most of that. On the Julian Lewis thing, I did go look, and there's one person out there. Now, if it's on Instagram, I'm not seeing it. I'm just looking at X. But if that's out there somewhere else, then thanks for passing that along. I did see like one person, and I'm not sure how valid it is, that said Julian Lewis is not visiting, to your point. So I'm sure that will be confirmed elsewhere, and we can follow up on that. And if so, maybe that's great news for Colorado. I mean, there's still that Big 12 tie-in potentially that would make it of interest, more interest to us. But, yeah, thanks for that. And then on that UCF win, that was a big deal. A&M was firing off shot after shot after shot after shot at the end and was just bricking them. I mean, they could have built a house with the number of bricks they threw up there at the end of the game. That was a hell of a win for UCF. It looked like it was a great atmosphere. And, talk a little smack, man. That was the first big night of basketball, and they're not a team that you're really eyeing the way you're eyeing some other teams in the Big 12, but I think the energy just of the conference can kind of carry over and bring an excitement level, especially at the beginning of the year. And so to go out and get a top 25 win like that, that's a big deal for that program and a really nice start. So that was cool. But as far as Baylor, I don't have anything at the moment.
I got some Big 12 notes here in basketball. We'll have Evan Mayakawa on. He'll join us at 5:10 or so with some of his analytics.
I couldn't stay up that late and watch it, but again, didn't miss what should have been a better.
You're so soft.
I am. I'm soft, but I don't care. I mean, I'm not going to stay up late and watch a basketball game.
Oh, I didn't watch the end of it. No.
Here's the thing. I would not have watched it from about halfway through looking at the game notes and the track. I would have stopped
when I did.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Late part of the first half. Yeah. Here's a note about the Big 12. And a lot of times you don't open up with playing a Gonzaga or playing some of the teams that are highly ranked, even a KU or whatever. So everybody last night who played in the Big 12 won. Arizona State, BYU, K-State, and Texas Tech did not play. Here are the plus margins of the wins. 30, 57, 39, 29, 3. That was UCF, or Cincinnati, excuse me. UCF. 55, 28, 46, 41, 13, and 20. Those were the spreads, the margin. And usually the first game, you don't want to dive into the big lake. With Baylor playing Gonzaga in a game that was going to be initially a neutral site, they had to change it. And Gonzaga is loaded. I think Baylor will be fine. But, man, that could be a scar that lasts for quite some time. And their schedule, what do they have? Arkansas around the corner and a few others, St. John's, and not to mention inside of the Big 12. Ohio State beat Texas by 8, and then we saw the UCF score and win against Texas A&M. Now, we have today a guest on the show to look at the college football projections. We have guests today to look at the Big 12 in general when it comes to football. Tomorrow, Utah, BYU, Holy War, right? We have Greg Wrubell, the voice of BYU, and we also have Stevenson Sylvester, former player and also color analyst for Utah, on the show. And Fox Sports' Brock Heward, broadcast analyst, will join us tomorrow, one of the guests we have on the show about many things in college football. Gary Barnett, former Colorado coach, who's a part of their radio broadcast, will also be a part of the lineup tomorrow. So a lot to get to today. Garrett Ross running the mothership. Emery Winter, of course, helping us with what he does and already starting to kind of look ahead to what we have tonight at 10:30 on 365 Sports Tonight. Anything I have not hit that we need to talk about before we break for the Four Corners pod?
No, I don't think so.
No, not that I can think of, unless y'all just want to get deeper into that Baylor game. But if you're saving that,
I don't know what you could get deeper into. Evan enough. Will give us some analytics. That was an ass kicking, pure and simple. You're going to have one of those where you just have a bad night. From what I saw, Baylor couldn't hit the three. They were like 2 of 13, and Gonzaga was like 6 of 16. Baylor did not always do well when it came to the boards. I like what I saw with a couple of Celestine. I thought that but they got a guard. They didn't guard. They got a guard. That's their mentality. That's how they won a national title. Davion Mitchell and or Flo Thamba with what he can do, or Mark Vidal, they're not walking through that arena, the Foster Pavilion. Those guys were special and very different. They were stoppers, and Baylor's got to figure out who that's going to be. Jaden Nunn at times gave them a spark, but Gonzaga just absolutely, in their home arena, felt very comfortable. You could see that from the beginning. It was like 8-1 and then 9-8 Baylor, and then it was over after that.
They would have, I think, they would have lost no matter what. But they do also look like a team who has played about 5 minutes together. I mean, like, you know, you look at the lineup, you know, Jean Wuna, Jaden Nunn, like those are the guys who started last year for him, and then everybody else is new.
No.
Everybody else is new.
No.
And so that's –
But they have Arkansas coming up next, and we know that's Calipari, and you know what he's put together. So it's going to be interesting to see if they come back. That game is up. I think that game's in Dallas, isn't it? Yeah, it's at the American Airlines Center in Dallas coming up this weekend. When we come back, we will look at the Big 12 pod, the four corners, and much more, including Sheehan and his top tiers of college quarterbacks within the Big 12 and his thoughts about tonight's college football standings. This is 365 Sports.
I know some of you have some concerns with everything that's in social media and the news right now, and we need to take it serious. We're paying a lot of attention to what the governing authorities and the guidance we're getting from the experts are saying. We're doing basic things that should keep us safe on a regular basis. We're doing some additional things, like, for instance, if you've been traveling outside of the country, perhaps you'd let us know and we can reschedule it to another time. If you're ill, running fever, perhaps if it's not an emergency, we'll reschedule it for another time. We might be implementing some of the things based on guidelines, but we're open. We're planning on staying open until otherwise notified that we have to mandate shutdown for public safety. And we are very comfortable we can provide safe and effective care. But if you have any concerns, contact us, talk to us when you're here. Because of schools being closed, we're getting a lot of demand right now with parents and teachers. In addition to that, if they do shut us down, our schedule is going to be difficult. So we would ask you, if you can, make your appointment. Let's get things accomplished right now when we know that we're open and we feel comfortable that we're being safe. And we'll apprise you of any changes that occur as it goes along. And again, if you have any concerns, email us, call us, just talk to us. Check on our website, stonewood-dental.com, and on social media for updates or if there are any changes.
Don't miss our best price deals during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. This month, save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new Rams. Shop our great selection of inventory in store or online today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this.
Another So-So pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait, there's Marco's! Our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor, and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
There are hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's Home Sleep Test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Shahan Jaraja will join us at the top of the 4 o'clock hour on his Big 12 quarterback tiers and his thoughts about what he expects or how he would in the college football standings. Four Corners Big 12 pod today. We started with the team that should be mentioned first. BYU, 8-0, 5-0, ranked in the top 10 at number 9. And it is the week of Utah. And when this was on the schedule for the year, you thought about, man, what would BYU be by the end of the year? And it's Utah holding on to try not to finish dead last in the conference with Oklahoma State right now is there. And Paul, BYU, they just seem like they take care of efficient. I don't know if they remind me of 2021 Baylor, the way they're winning. Their defense is very, very good. You don't think so, Craig?
No, they don't run the ball like that.
No. They are tough like that, where they
there's a lot of tough teams.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're tough like that. That's what Kalani Sitake likes. He likes teams that, every time they get up after the play, the other team's like, oh.
Yeah, in fact, he said what bothered him the most when they played in Waco the first time after a long drought of not playing each other was that they weren't the most physical team.
Yeah, so there certainly are that. And look, Utah, in spite of everything, is still that. I expect a super physical game. It's going to be intense. It's going to be it's a rivalry game. It might be the most hated rivalry in the Big 12. Like, no offense to the Revivalry. I will not call it the Blue Bonnet Battle. But Utah and BYU just hate each other's guts.
Yeah.
So it's going to be intense.
Utah doesn't give up more than 16-point-something points per game, so they're still playing really good defense. They just can't score.
Yeah, I mean, I like BYU here a lot. They are on the road, so there is that. They've had 2 weeks to prepare, so has their opponent. But BYU feels a lot better about where they sit, and especially the last 2 weeks than their counterparts here. I mean, they basically just have to avoid a trap. That's all there is to this. I mean, and this is one of those games where you throw the records out and you factor in just that it's going to be a heated, hated, brutal, physical battle, and whoever's toughest and I guess either makes the most plays or the least amount of mistakes or both is going to be the team that eventually emerges here. It is interesting that the line dropped from 5 to 3.5 so far this week at least, so tends to mean that there's some folks out there that think this will be a little bit closer than maybe just by looking at the records and saying, oh, well, Utah's clearly not that good and BYU's undefeated. BYU's going to roll them. It's like, no, not necessarily. This is the Holy War. This is a rivalry. Throw the records out again. So you also take into account being in hostile territory and the fact that Utah would love nothing more, and the thing that would salvage their otherwise terrible season would be to beat BYU and give them a loss. So they're going to be motivated, but I think BYU knows what they're in store for. Kalani Sitake knows this rivalry inside and out. So long as they've been able to just maintain their health, I think they've got a great shot to go and win this weekend and to keep winning on out the rest of this season, although there will be more challenges like going to Arizona State here in a couple of weeks. But there's not really much to say about BYU other than they just handled their business. Jake Retzloff's getting much better. Defense is great. And they're starting to get in a run game going these last couple of games with LJ Martin healthy and available. So they just keep doing what they've been doing and don't suddenly start turning the ball over too much or not getting turnovers. Then I think that they should be 9-0 after this weekend.
They have played over 100 times. The 100th meeting was back in 2019. It has been a series of streaks. Like BYU had a long streak. Utah dominated forever and ever. I mean, forever and ever. And then up until the game in 2021, BYU winning, Utah had won 9 straight, had won 14 of the last 17. And last year, 2 years ago, BYU got them 26-17.
I do think this, though, Iowa State, you could kind of tell the last couple of weeks where they were starting to fade a little bit, and so it wasn't a complete 100% across the board unanimous shock when they got beat by Texas Tech, although it was like 98%. But they had kind of shown some signs. BYU's not shown signs of cracking necessarily, but they've won their close games so far, and they've been in trouble on a couple of occasions. So they can be had, I think. And I think Utah, regardless of the record, regardless of the quarterback, is the type of team that could just get in there and get into a fight and land the right punch at the right time potentially. But you've got to finish off BYU. Like, you cannot give them a chance at the end, or based on what we've seen so far, they're going to come through and win the game.
Who was it, Oklahoma State, that had them in trouble?
Oklahoma
Friday
State
night,
had them
2 or 3 weeks ago. Yep.
UCF had them.
Yep.
So they're actually the last 2 games, quite frankly, could have both gone the other direction, and we're talking about a 2-loss BYU team very easily.
Thank you very much, Xavier Wolf, with a super chat. Thank you for that today. Appreciate your time. Thank you all, 365 Sports, a professional and excellent broadcast. We do appreciate your thoughts and also comments. Now, up next, Colorado.
How about we do the other side of the Holy War?
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Utah.
Utah.
Actually, Utah was who we started with, but we got into Brigham Young.
Yeah.
First time I've said it in 3 months. We got into BYU.
Did we? Did I veer us off course there?
Yeah, that's okay. No, that's okay.
right.
We mentioned Kyle Whittingham. There are thoughts that this is such a frustrating year. He wants to walk away at some point. They have the coach in waiting, but this you mentioned this, Craig. Utah can make their season and maybe turn it around where they end up with 7 or 8 wins if they can beat their rival in BYU.
Yeah, I think that's where I got off course, was just thinking about how they could salvage that, and I started talking about the Cougars. But for Utah, see, I did it again. For Utah, I mean, this is the biggest game on the schedule. This wasn't necessarily the game you planned on being the biggest overall when all was said and done, but it's going to be, because there's not any bigger games that are going to be on the rest of the schedule, like a playoff or a Big 12 title. Like, all that's not happening. So this is far and away the biggest game on your schedule, and it's the only game remaining on your schedule that could make this year feel any better than the disappointment that it's been. So I think Utah will have their absolute best ready to go. I don't know what their plan is at quarterback. They haven't revealed that yet. Isaac Wilson is in the mix. You got Brandon Rose as well. So we'll see how that is actually divvied up and who they roll with as their starter. Don't really love either guy at this point, especially not compared to their counterpart in Jake Rutzloff and the way that he's playing right now. But you don't have to win with the quarterback play. You've got a really good defense. You can run the ball a little bit to get Micah Bernard going. But, I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle. And then again, I think it's going to be a slugfest, so I think that actually plays into Utah's hands. They don't have to win a shootout is what I'm saying. So they can not get tons from their offense and still be in okay position, but they got to get something, and that's not something they've been getting at all lately. That offense has been their bugaboo by far.
I had a couple of BYU fans that chirped in on the game between UCF and BYU. That when we got off course, UCF scored 2 late touchdowns. That game at one point was 34-10. So really, BYU controlled that game, dominated that game, and then UCF scored a couple of touchdowns at the end to make it look a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, that's very valid, but it was still a very close game at the end that they managed to win. Was really just the overriding point. Not that they were getting dominated or weren't in control, just that they've escaped with a couple of really close wins that could have gone the other way quite easily. And so they've played with fire, and so far they haven't been burned, but they've been close enough to feel like they're not capable of being burned.
For sure, Oklahoma State on the last second touchdown, and then, of course, at Baylor when they blew a 28-7 lead at one point. All right, let's get back to the Four Corners. Colorado is next. How about the Four Corners? 2 of the teams that were thought to have made the best push this year, Arizona, Utah, are down near the bottom. And then you have what we have with Colorado and Dion and company. Man, I look forward to watching. Baylor's off, so no game for us to cover. I look forward to watching this game. This ought to be maybe a flamethrower.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be. Look, they both can score some points. They're both, they have defenses. Colorado has been better. Tex has been serviceable. It was serviceable last week, against Iowa State, holding them just to 22 points when they've given up a lot more than that to most everybody else on the season. So, yeah, I think this one's going to be an absolute slobber knocker not necessarily a slobber knocker. It's going to be a track meet. You're going to see speed. I'm excited about this one. Very, very, very high scoring game, I think. Bang the over on this.
Who we highlighting here?
Colorado.
Yeah, I think that they're in a really good spot as the third team in the mix right now for the Big 12 championship as far as one loss or better. And they have a lot of good mojo going on right now, but I know Joey McGuire and company are going to come rolling in with a lot of their own and looking to play upset and looking to build off last week's win. I do think playing in Boulder is a slight advantage, but not anything crazy. We know they should have lost to Baylor in Boulder about a month ago. So I don't think it's impossible at all for Texas Tech to roll in there and get a win, but I do think Colorado's in a good groove. They seem to be pretty healthy at this stretch when that was a big question mark, especially early on. And I think that they've got an opportunity to really throw the ball around a lot on this Texas Tech defense, if it's anything like the Texas Tech defense that we've seen up until really last week when they had a little bit better of a showing against Iowa State compared to what we had seen immediately before that. So there's an area for Colorado to take advantage potentially. But I like them in this game, and I like them coming off of an open week.
Do you think if you could set the over-under, Paul, what would you set it at? Just as someone
70.
70?
No, I'm probably 65.
70's a lot.
70's a lot. Probably 64, 65.
I can see this being a 40-35 game.
Oh, I can. Yeah, I can.
I don't. I mean, I guess I could see it, but I think Colorado's defense is a bit better than that at this point. I don't know that it's going to be straight up shootout, but it very well could be. Yeah, I think Colorado's defense might be the key to kind of tilting it in their direction. If you kind of negate the offenses, I take their unit over the Red Raiders unit. But yeah, it could very well turn into a shootout.
They've gone to some of the fundamentals of what you need to do, which is a lot better protecting Shedeur, although it's not flawless by any means, and then the defense has played really kind of a nice hard-nosed look to them. Ever since the win against Baylor at the end, which was phenomenal, and how that ended, they kind of like all of a sudden it gave them a true belief, not just talk, but the kind of, I guess you say, nuts and bolts of who they are. Arizona State, still such a great story. UCF comes to town, 6 o'clock game on ESPN2. That game is at Sun Devil Stadium. They beat the hell out of Oklahoma State. Scatterboo with what he did. The quarterback healthy again. This might be a shootout. I don't know, but Arizona State can play pretty good defense too.
Yeah, it depends on Scatterboo. I mean, to me and how well they're going to play. I mean, if they don't have their biggest offensive weapon, it's going to be a problem for them.
Oh, yeah.
So, is he going to play? Is he all right? If he does play, is he limited? Is he not the Cam Scatterboo we know? I don't know. I mean, that to me is the big deal here with Arizona State.
That's their big headline. It was great to get Sam Levitt back last week, and he played pretty well. So that's a feather in your cap that you have that you didn't know how long he might be out. So that was good to see, and they're playing with a lot of confidence. They've got bowl eligibility behind them. That was a great step up, earning that last week for Kenny Dillingham and company, and really just not leaving any doubts against Oklahoma State. They rolled into Stillwater. It's taken some Big 12 teams years to go win in Stillwater. They did it in their first chance and didn't leave anything but just dust in their wake, in the wake of Cam Scatterboo. So, yeah, everything hinges on him, but they're pretty good all around, and I think this ought to be a really interesting game with a UCF team that suddenly is playing with a lot of confidence after the quarterback change last week with Dylan Rizek taking over and giving them a different look. But I like Arizona State at home. I think that obviously stopping UCF's run game will be a big part of the equation, but if Rizek's throwing it around, that's another development to have to plan for. So I'm curious to see how Kenny Dillingham responds to the limited film on Rizek, on Risk, excuse me. But yeah, this for them really boils down to Cam Scatterboo and his availability.
Arizona State's defense 27th in the country against the run, which of course, as you meant, Risk is now playing the quarterback position. That changes up a lot of what UCF might be able to do, but they've been pretty stingy against the run, which, of course, UCF puts up monster numbers led by R.J. Harvey. Now, Arizona. Man, I tell you what, there's guys we follow ever since before. I guess when started to think about, are they going to be a part of the Big 12? Jason Shear, Michael Luke, among others. There's heat right now on Brennan. Lots of heat on him. Some not demanding, but you need to change something on offense and defense or coaching staff or whatever. There was even a little bit of smoke about whether or not he would survive until next year, as they've had a disappointing start with Fafita and McMillan, the two weapons, but they just haven't clicked this year. Though they've had big stat games, but as far as the team, Arizona.
Yeah, you're going to have to forgive me for being a little bit sleep-deprived. I realize now what I screwed up. I started talking about BYU because it connected, but we're doing the four corners.
You don't have to apologize about that.
No, I know, but now I'm realizing why I stumbled into that is because I just lumped them in with the four corners, and they're not. They're part of the Bob Bowlesby pod.
Bob Bowlesby would be
so that's my bad for lumping them in. We should have just – we'll have to get to them, in the correct order. But Arizona is just a giant mess. They stink. And I'm tired of talking about the same two players and the same two players alone. They're great players, Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan, but you can't just have two guys, basically. And they've had other guys who have been good players. Some of them have gotten hurt, especially on defense. But the offense is atrocious, especially for having two players of that caliber. They really have not much else besides those two, so it's feast or famine, and it was a lot of famine last week, even though they were still able to connect. They're always going to be able to connect. They've been connecting since high school. But you have nothing else other than that, basically. And so, I think, injuries were something you could point to at least early on. But clearly the coaching turnover has created more issues, as we expected. And then it kind of got like, no, they've got these guys coming back. Nobody really left and this and that. I know Jason Scheer, our buddy, was really positive on them, and he's had to completely course correct because they did not see this kind of a fall coming. So, yeah, it's all bad in Tucson right now, and to the point that you made of they're actually talking about job security. I think that's ridiculous for a first-year head coach, no matter where you are, much less at a non-powerhouse football place like Arizona. Like, who the hell are you to be replacing football coaches midway through the year in year number one? Like, What do you think, you're Alabama or something? But if it's that bad to where you are having that conversation, maybe you just eat it and you go, this is a horrible hire, and we're going to, before we cause any further damage, just go ahead and get rid of this guy. I don't know if that's really where it is and where it will go, but it has not been good, and it's not been anywhere close to the level that you would have expected with two megastars coming back in your two studs, Fafita and McMillan. So this has been a bad year. It doesn't look like it's got much room to get any better. And so I'm very curious to see just how the temperature continues to rise or not for the Brent Brennan regime now. This is a very forgettable first year in the Big 12.
I'll tell you this. I think that, we know for sure, Ted McMillan gone. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, so they're not getting him back. Well, part of the thing that brings a Noah Fafita back, other than NIL, is that you have Ted McMillan there to, help you along the way. Well, now that he's gone, Fafita is not, after this year, not going to be what you call a draftable quarterback, but he's still really talented. I don't know if they'll be able to keep him out of the portal, especially if there's coaching turmoil. I would say that there's already people that are like, he's on that list with John Mateer, where John Mateer's got people hitting him up in his DMs all the time going, Pullman, Washington's beautiful. That's the Palouse, all that stuff. But where else is also beautiful? Atlanta.
Miami, Florida.
And the surrounding area. It's like Athens, Georgia, whatever. It's not them. Or, have you been to Tuscaloosa? They love college football there.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice hedges in South Carolina that have been torn down from storming the field. By the way, on the UCF Arizona, go back to that for a second. UCF's offense, we know that both teams love to run the football. Scatterboo at Arizona State and a plethora of guys at UCF, including Harvey. They're 34th, UCF, against the run, 27th for Arizona State. So whoever can hold up that end of the bargain has a good chance. But both, of course, quarterbacks are playing well. The risk with the new one at UCF is starting to play, and also with Arizona State's health.
Yeah, UCF kicked their ass, had a big moment before halftime, had a lot of big moments throughout that game. I mean, they just utterly dominated and didn't leave much doubt. So that was a horrific loss for Arizona. Their fifth straight. They are lucky that Utah was there for the taking, and they were able to beat them for a second year in a row, because outside of that, they would be right there next to Oklahoma State at winless in the Big 12. So it's been bad, man. And I did want to say on BYU, I know that I already screwed up by including them in this pod to begin with. That's a very valid point the person brought up, whoever that was, about the UCF game and how it looked closer at the end. I would counter with SMU then. They've had a couple. That was my overall point. Was they've had a couple games they've won at the end that were close. UCF's probably not the best example, so thank you for correcting me there. So let's swap out SMU, which turns out to be a great win. Point is, they've played with fire and they've remained unburned, but you do that often enough, that's not going to be the case.
They have found a way to win up until this point. If I'm the only one allowed to screw up who we talk about within the pod.
I did it once.
Yeah, you did. You just went off on a tangent about like Vanderbilt or something like that. Not even in the conference.
I was just so excited about the Holy War that we had to get straight to that and just skip.
We have two analysts, Greg Wrubell tomorrow and Stevenson Sylvester tomorrow, to talk about BYU and Utah. Gary Barnett on Colorado tomorrow and much more. When we come back, Shahan Jaraja, he will join us from CBS Sports. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor alumni fan engagement, Doug Furch, Paul Thorpe, what a great group, what a couple of guys I've known for the longest of time, traveling to various tournaments and championships and more. Knew them. They were always on the road. And what they do is they make sure that if, in fact, let's say Baylor's playing out of town, that they usually have a setup for the alumni to come by wherever it might be. And if you are, for example, let's see, what city have I not talked about a lot? I know there's a large alum based in Salt Lake City, L.A., Chicago, Washington, D.C., etc., but Houston. If you're having your own watch party but not here, they will help you launch the information out to all of the alums that are in that vicinity or in your state and help you know, help them know the information is there, what you're doing, where you're doing it, how much it costs, etc. The Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement did a great job over the weekend of homecoming and last weekend for the TCU game. The Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement. For more information, hit them up on Facebook.
Score big savings at the Kickoff the Savings event at Richard Carr Buick, a 2024 Car and Driver Magazine Editor's Choice. The all-new Buick Envista starts at only $23,990. Or make the winning drive in a 2024 Buick Encore GX SUV and save $4,000 for non-GM car owners. Or save $1,000 on 2024 Buick Envisions in stock. Qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. Score your deal at the Kickoff the Savings event going on now at Richard Carr Buick.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Shahan Jayaraja from CBS Sports joins us. Baylor grad on the show with us, CBS Sports. And we mentioned last week the story about the quarterback tears from what he thought before the season and what we've seen up until last weekend. Shahan joins Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. How you been, young man?
I've been good. Thank you so much for having me.
So what are your expectations of what we see tonight with the first release? Will there be a surprise in your opinion? Are people going to get mixed up because the top 4 are the best right now, highest-ranked conference leaders? Or what do you expect?
Well, I do think that the biggest thing that people need to get used to is the difference between ranking and seeding. That is going to confuse people so much through the first couple weeks of this. And this is going to come down to, like you mentioned, conference championships. The top 4 seeds in the college football playoff will not be the top 4 teams in the college football playoff. Those are going to be 2 different things. And one way to think about it is, obviously, the conference affiliations have changed last year, but if you take last year's rankings and adjust them to having this year's conferences, like the Big 12 team would have been number 14 Arizona, and they would have jumped up to number 4. That's just the way that the system is going to work. It's going to be a little confusing. The other thing, though, too, that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on is every year there's 1 or 2 teams that the playoff committee is just rating a little bit differently than the AP poll. I think it might be BYU. I think that BYU might end up a little higher than people expect. 2 really good wins in SMU and Kansas State. No losses to this point. They're behind multiple one-loss teams in the AP poll right now. I think that they might end up a little bit higher than that.
Do you think that there will be some seeding outrage from conferences like the Big 12 and ACC who probably have a better case than certain teams to be in here because of their quality wins that will not be listed in the top 12?
Well, I think that a big piece of this is going to be, where do a lot of these 2-loss SEC teams turn up? Because I will say, whatever you want to say, like Iowa State would have been a top 10 team if they don't lose last weekend. They kind of mess it up for themselves. Clemson, they would have been a top 15 team if they don't lose last weekend. So I think that BYU and Miami are going to be the only 2 teams from those 2 conferences that feel very, very comfortable. SMU may be a 3rd team that gets in there as well. But I do think that how many teams they're behind or who else is in that group is going to be a big part of this. If we look up and Iowa State is like number 17 or 18, that is really bad news for the Big 12. It means that essentially no one other than BYU has any ability to create an at-large case for themselves for the rest of the season. Same deal with Kansas State. If Kansas State's like not in the rankings, for example, that's a huge deal, not just for the Big 12, but also for BYU as they try to make their case. So the way that all 25 of those seeds ultimately worked out is going to be a huge deal for kind of trying to define how good are these teams and what is the upside for a team, even like BYU or Miami.
Shahan, with the Big 12, you mentioned Iowa State, K-State taking those losses last week and really didn't, especially K-State's chances. But BYU, is Colorado kind of still in that mix, do you feel like? Is that a team you're eyeing as far as the rankings go? Because they've got a lot left and only that one loss over their heads as well. It just feels like they don't necessarily get lumped in. Do you think that starts to change now as we get later in the year?
Well, I think that for Colorado, just like for Kansas State, they're alive, but only if they win a conference championship. You mentioned one loss in conference play, 2 losses overall, including the loss to Nebraska. And so they have to win the conference, in my opinion, in order to make the field. Now, if you look at the Big 12 standings right now, they're right there. They have every bit as much of a chance as everybody else. And they actually play a huge game from a tiebreaker perspective this week against Texas Tech. If they win that game, then they put themselves in a really good position against a team like Iowa State who just lost, and it'll come down to mutual opponents. It gets a little confusing, but they are very much alive from that perspective. I expect them to be certainly in the top 25. I think if they're in the top 20-ish, I think that's pretty good news for the Big 12 overall. But again, them along with Kansas State, I think they have to win the Big 12 in order to get in.
Yeah, that last weekend for the Big 12, because they don't have a lot of openings. There's not a lot of mulligans with K-State losing and also the loss as well by Iowa State. If BYU runs the table, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but they've been solid, and Utah, of course, this weekend, how can they? Is it what you just said, the only way they would get 2 is if UCF stays unblemished and then lose in the Big 12 to one of those other 2 teams?
You mean BYU?
BYU, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes. I think that the only way that they could get 2 is if BYU is undefeated heading into the Big 12 title game and a team pulls an upset.
Yeah.
Because I think that a 1-loss Big 12 team is in really good shape as an at-large. And that's what was so great heading into Week 10 is that there were 2 undefeated teams left with Iowa State and BYU. Well, now if Iowa State has 2 losses and obviously one of those is in the Big 12 title game to BYU, I don't know necessarily that just a win against Kansas State, which would essentially be the majority of their resume, is enough to get them in as a 2-loss team over the amount of 2-loss teams that they're going to be. I think they're going to be relatively low priority from that perspective. Now, look, if Iowa State goes 12-1 and upsets BYU, of course, Iowa State gets in. I think 12-1 BYU still gets in without much issue. But, again, that's kind of trying to thread a needle that you can't really plan for. And certainly, look, BYU is not going to throw a Big 12 title game in order to try to get more teams in the field. So if I had to guess right now, and by the way, the ACC is in a similar position with Clemson losing as well, and SMU would be a 2-loss team if they lose that conference championship game. I think the ACC and the Big 12 can only feel really comfortable that one team from each league is going to get in right now.
One of the things, to my previous question about fans being mad, Iowa State to me is an interesting, case study here. They have a loss by 1 point to Texas Tech, who's got a winning record. Not ranked, but winning record. Notre Dame has a loss to Northern Illinois. Tennessee has a loss to Arkansas. Those teams are ranked well ahead of Iowa State right now. So the baked-in bias about that, schedules notwithstanding at all, are kind of in there about what they think about Iowa State compared to Notre Dame and Tennessee. And Notre Dame and Tennessee being up there has much more to do with the fact that they're Notre Dame and Tennessee and Iowa State's Iowa State than actually, if you compare results on the field, because they're all pretty similar. And I could argue that Iowa State has the best loss of those 3.
I think that you're right. The thing that I think makes things difficult for Iowa State is that they got a pretty manageable Big 12 schedule overall, but because of the way that some things worked out, they just don't have very many quality wins at this point. Iowa's been a little bit disappointing so far this year, and I think that that's going to factor in. Now, if Iowa finishes 9 or 10 wins, I think that does help Iowa State's case just a little bit, but they don't play probably a ranked team until the end of the year, that last week of the season against Kansas State. And so I think it's really going to be more trying to evaluate where the wins are. Now, like you said, the loss that they took, it's not a bad loss whatsoever. I think that Iowa State's still a very good, very talented team. But for example, with Tennessee, you have a win over Alabama. That's a top 15 team. With Notre Dame, you have a win over Texas A&M, who's a top 20 team, and also one against Louisville. I think that that's the biggest thing that's going to be held against them. But I agree. I would have them in that same tier as those teams. But just because of the lack of wins, I think that ultimately the committee is going to probably have them at the bottom of that tier.
I guess that probably applies to my next question. How do you think they'll view Washington State, who has not really beaten anybody, but they are 7-1? There's the whole Pac-2 affiliation that's kind of weird you don't know how they're really considered, right? Because they're not considered a power conference, but there's just, it's so unique what their setup is. What do you think about Washington State and just how they should kind of feel about things heading into this one?
Well, and they do have two pretty good wins against power conference opponents, with one against Washington, 24-19, and then of course the 3-touchdown win against Texas Tech as well. So I think they're going to be in the rankings. I think that they're going to have a chance. The thing that's difficult for them is that they can't get an auto bid any which way, right? Like they're not eligible for one as a power conference. They're not eligible for one to take the group of 5 spot. I think they'd be very competitive for that spot outside of their loss to Boise State if they did. But I do think this is going to be probably a top 20-ish type team. I mean, they have been really impressive so far this year. They're beating teams pretty good. They have a great quarterback in John Mateer from Little Elm, Texas, who's doing a great job for them. But again, it just makes their path a little complicated. I don't know if they have a pathway all the way into the top 11, which is essentially what you'd need to make it as an at-large team without a conference affiliation, essentially. But I do think they're going to be part of this conversation. And also, by the way, if they're ranked pretty high, which I think they deserve to be, that's only going to help Boise State as well.
Yep, because they have the win against them. Is there anything else that we haven't brought up about tonight that might prime? I saw you did like the top 5 things to get ready for tonight. I love that. Is there anything else that you want to add to that mix that we haven't brought up yet?
Yeah, I do want to touch on Boise State for 1 second, and there's 2 sides of this. It's really the question of, are they closer to the top or are they closer to the field? And what I mean by that is Boise State is going to be in a position, right? In the AP poll, they're number 12 right now. They're going to be in a position where, one, they might not just default in as the number 12 seed in the rankings if they do get the group of 5 slot, because they might be ranked higher than top 12 in the rankings. The other piece, though, too, that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on is just how far ahead of the other group of 5 teams are they, including, by the way, against undefeated Army, including against 1-loss Louisiana, 2-loss Tulane, etc. And the other piece is how close are they to the potential champions from the ACC and the Big 12? Because, for example, let's say in the ACC, let's say that Clemson makes it through and they win as a 2-loss team. Well, is Boise State ranked ahead of that team? And would they then be able to get a first-round bye and a top 4 seed potentially by finishing ahead of the ACC champion? People need to remember, it's not the power conference teams that are guaranteed a top 4 seed. It's the top 4 champions, regardless of what conference they come from. So I think whether Boise State is closer to, let's say, Miami or BYU or ahead of Clemson is going to be very valuable to figure out, versus are they closer to falling behind into the Tulanes, the Louisianas, the Armies?
Yeah, that's something that we've tried to bring up a couple of times on this show. People get confused. It's not the top 4 power conferences that get the byes. There used to be 5 of them. It is the top 5 conference champions. And I think sometimes people are not paying attention to that.
Yeah, and it's complicated, right? It's confusing. But if you look back, and obviously 2020 was a little bit of a weird year, but in 2020, if you had, a 6-6, as it would have been at the time, there actually would have been 2 group of 5 champions to make it over the Pac-12 champion, because Cincinnati was a top 10 team from the AAC, and Coastal Carolina was a top 12 team from the Sun Belt, ahead of number 25 Oregon, who was the Pac-12 champion. So there is a little bit of precedent for this, but again, it's going to more times than not be a group of 5 team, and it's more often than not going to be them getting the 12 seed, but it's not a guarantee. That's not how the system works.
Again, Shahan, you did a tier ranking of the, don't put the graphics up, Garrett, but a tier ranking of the top 3 quarterbacks as of leading into last weekend. Shedeur, Rocco Beck, and also Jake Retzlaff. Did Beck fall out of the top tier based on the game with Texas Tech?
Yeah, it was a bad week for him to be tier 1, I guess. I don't think that I'd take him all the way out of tier 1, but I do think, I put them in sort of a loose order. I probably would have him at the bottom of tier 1 at this point, behind Jake Retzlaff and Shedeur Sanders. Just a bad game from him, but he has been such a dynamic force for that team. And I mean, you even think back to when Brock Purdy was on campus. I mean, quarterback plays such a huge role on that team, and they have 2 receivers in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel that really have been such big parts of this team. And I think that threesome is such a big part of why they were able to start 8-0. Now, again, I think that he's closer to the pack, but he's still just probably half a step ahead of maybe some of those tier 2 guys.
Shahan, one more thing.
I have one more thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you said one more thing. I thought it was a thing. I was just making a bit.
Oh, no, I have one more thing, too. You have one more. That's 2 more things. Is it better to have a good win, a really good win, or does that trump a bad loss?
I think it does. It's interesting, right? I did the college football playoff mock selection committee earlier this year, and that was something that we really went back and forth on, because I think that we were actually talking about Louisville in last year's rankings. They had a bizarre loss to 3-9 Pitt, but they also punched up quite a bit as well, including a win over Notre Dame. I think that overall, I think you get a mulligan. Once you start going to 2 losses or 3 losses, I think that's off the table. But if you have one bad week and otherwise have positive performance, like Notre Dame this year is, of course, kind of the poster child for it, it certainly ranks against you that you had a terrible, no good, very bad week. But if you can offset it with a good win or 2, I think that wins are generally going to be valued more than losses are held against you.
Did you just quote a children's book?
Did I? What did I say?
No good, very bad weekend, then, like a children's book.
Listen, I got a 9-month-old at home. It's always on the brain.
That's awesome.
I'm curious how you have Noah Fifita in the struggling tier right now, and that's true. He and Tetero McMillan came back. We were talking about this just before you came on. If you had to bet on it right now, is Noah Fifita at Arizona next year, or with Tet McMillan going to the NFL, does he try to go somewhere that can up his stock?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that he probably does move on after this season. So much of the case for Arizona this year was that they were able to keep the band together. And unfortunately, it's just hard to switch out an entire coaching staff and just maintain the way that they kind of tried to do. I think with Teteroya McMillan gone, Noah Fifita will look for a new circumstance for him. And it's not just going to be him. I mean, they have potentially 2 or 3 guys who are going to be first or second round picks. And it's just not going to be the same team in 2025, not even getting into whether he feels like he's a good fit for what Brent Brennan wants to do at the quarterback position. So I do think that, unfortunately, he's going to probably move on after the 2024 season.
Hey, Shahan, thank you, buddy. Good stuff. CBS Sports, appreciate it. Good to see you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Again, if you haven't seen it, you can go to his feed. He also has 5 things to look at before the release of the standings tonight to kind of keep you from like, oh, my God, or like overreacting to one thing or the other. And, of course, it is the first ranking he also did the quarterback tiers. And you're right, Paul. Fifita, Garrett Green, and Jalen Daniels on the disappointing years. Bad situations, Chris at Houston, Bowman at Oklahoma State, Wilson at Utah, and Ja'Curry Brown at UCF. Of course, UCF's made a quarterback change. Oklahoma State's tried to, right? Yep. Houston has, because it was obviously Donovan Smith. And then there's a group of rising stars that would be the ones you would think. Avery Johnson, Sorsby, Hoover, Baron Morton, Levitt, and also Baylor's Sawyer Robertson.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks. Good to have Shahan on the show and get his thoughts on the playoff. And the way he's able to break it down might need to be a regular as far as the playoff goes.
He's really good at it.
I think he might be a good guy to break that down each week, especially when you've got just more interest across the board, where going into tonight, BYU, if this was the old format, BYU would still be of the utmost interest because they're an undefeated team in a power conference, so they would be in the top 4 discussion anyways. But you do have that now where you're like, well, what about Iowa State, and what about Kansas State, and what about Colorado? Like, what scenarios would it – and how is that not more fun? Mm-hmm. How is that not more fun than just going what we would typically be in tonight? Like, so who's number 5? And how do 5 and 6 duke it out basically for the rest of the year? And who does 7 and 8 play? But I know that there will be probably something tonight that causes people to say, well, this is why the 4-team playoff was better, but – I don't know, man. We wouldn't be talking about 5 teams out of the Big 12 with the college football playoff without the expanded playoff. We'd be talking about BYU and only BYU.
Yeah.
Iowa State would be like 7th place in the 5 through 12 rankings, basically, if not farther back. So I think that alone, just for this league, makes it more interesting. I don't know how it doesn't make it more interesting for every other league, and therefore more interesting for everybody across the board, because we're talking about Boise State. We're talking about freaking Army, guys. Like, we're talking
Wazoo.
about – yeah, like, I mean –
If I would have told you the start of the year would be Boise State, SMU, and Army.
Yeah.
Right? And again, we could add a couple of others in that mix. Not all of them, but that 2 or 3 of them would get in. And there's still a lot of games to be played.
I mean, I know that hurts the whatever bowl to not have just their layup, but I'd much rather talk about this and getting the 11th spot than you just get your one-off with the Fiesta Bowl or whatever. Like I said, I'm sure there'll be something I don't like at some point, but this is already the first playoff show is way more interesting than any of the other playoff shows that we've had, except for the season finales, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'll be the case every week, but I think it will be because you have so many people that are interested in where they are.
It's not just the 12, it's the outside of it, you do in the NCAA men's basketball tournament.
I would also rather watch it than nerds pointing at maps.
Yeah, that too.
So it's a better show than nerds.
Well,
nerds
the
pointing
college
at maps.
football standings will be over a lot earlier than anything.
Oh, you can watch it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can watch it again.
All right, when we come back, J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback and also color analyst on the 3-game winning streak and on the play of Sawyer Robertson, Bryson Washington, and much more. He's right there in the middle of it with the broadcast. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans. Joshua and Cheyenne. They're in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills. McClain Cigars out of Dallas that make you smoke the pay grade you want when it comes to what they have available to you. Warfighter out just north of San Antonio in Shirts, the combat veteran owned and operated company. Roma Craft Cigars out of Austin, a boutique company with full bold flavor cigars. Rojas Cigars out of Richardson, delicious cigars named after your favorite Mexican food. Smoke a whole enchilada or a breakfast taco. Those are some brand names of their cigars. Also, these are military or veteran-owned businesses and cigar companies if you want to support them. With Josh and Cheyenne, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Sent a note to Shahan Jayaraja from CBS Sports that through the weeks leading up to the final release of the standings/seeding, if he could just come on with us like he did today at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays. And I think that's going to be something we do. We'll just kind of get a time set up, but a good recommendation by Paul. So we'll have J.J. Joe here momentarily.
That's Craig's recommendation.
It was Craig's recommendation.
Yeah.
BYU, Colorado. Yeah, we're all
Hey,
yeah.
look, here's the deal. Craig just turned 40. So he is just experiencing this. This is new for him. So
What, loss of memory?
Yeah. I'm 4.5 years in. So I'm pretty much used to it.
A quarter of a century.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I've started to look for, I worry about the status of elder care in this country, but I hope 20 years from now that it will be a much better.
No,
and that way,
let us just be who we are.
I just want you to be taken care of in a place that will love you, Smokey. That's all. Not just based
on the last couple of weeks, it's not
a dump
the chat
them and ditch
room.
them place.
Because people with emotions about me.
I think that we just want to put you in a place that's comfortable. That
like a rest home.
Yeah, but I don't want it to be. I had a friend who had to do one at a stint at a rehab facility recently, a very dear family friend, and it was depressing to go in there. And I don't want you to go in a place that's depressing.
Well, if it's depressing for you to walk into that, I'm not sure we have JJ yet. I haven't heard from him yet. I thought we were set up. To walk into it as someone visiting, what's it like to be in?
I know. That's why I don't want that for anyone in my life. But I hope that, we'll find someplace comfortable for you.
Yeah, I'm 25 years into that plus 40 retired stockbroker who did order some product from Don Humidor and Coffee Beans saying, hey, Joshua and Cheyenne rock. Yes, they do. And again, working on the ability for you to order what they have, the product that is also online. MC Gusto, he's a frustrated UCF fan. Expectations for them were pretty high this year. And it seemed like they started off with, this is going to be a fun year. He's a little bit frustrated. He also said it'd be interesting to dissect which Big 12 coaches have their egos too much into it. Would Gundy and Gus be 1 and 2?
I don't know about 1 and 2. I have to sit and kind of think on that. But, I definitely wouldn't throw Dave Aranda in there. I wouldn't throw Kalani Sitake in there. Those two off the top of my head, I definitely would not include. I'm trying to how do you define ego? Like versus, you know what I'm saying? Like I think Kenny Dillingham's got some ego, but I think that's mostly just confidence and emanating from him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like Whittingham is confident. But
I think he's got some ego, though.
Yeah,
I think he's got some ego.
He would be in the conversation. With Dion?
Dion.
I think he's fine.
But no, Dion maybe he knows how to effectively use his ego where I don't know. And it's not 100%. He's not batting 1,000 with that. But he knows how to maybe use it a little bit better than most because that's always kind of been his thing since day one. As where, if you're talking about a coach with ego, Mike Gundy has a gigantic ego, which is why he probably doesn't do any interviews because there's not enough space in the room for everybody to do it with that ego in there. I think, Gundy, Gus Malzahn, big ego guys for sure. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if it makes you bad. Dion is the ego guy. That's his thing, but I'm not sure, if it's bad all the way around all the
No,
time.
I think Deion. I think Deion's pretty much it. He doesn't bother me at least affect me the way some others. There's been times, he uses who he is, but I think he's actually been pretty mellow for the most part this year.
Yeah, I think Deion gets sometimes a fair rep. I think oftentimes he gets a bad rep, though, when it comes to the ego and all those things. Sometimes he's asking for it. Sometimes people are just taking pot shots. And I do recall vividly, and look, my Big 12 preseason predictions weren't anything to brag about being anywhere close to perfect, although it's not terrible. But obviously teams like Oklahoma State and Kansas have kind of thrown things for a loop. But there are a lot of people not giving Colorado any benefit of the doubt, and they're sitting pretty, and I like that for them. I like that for that program. I hope Deion sticks around Colorado because as annoying as some people might find him or as egotistical as some people might find him, he does make that program far more interesting than when Gary Barnett was coaching it or, name any coach in Colorado's history.
Gary Barnett, by the way, will join the show.
I know, that's part of why I said it, but who's more interesting? I'd rather follow Deion Sanders running a football program, especially after losing Shedeur and Travis Hunter. That I really want to see, because how do you do that without your two golden geese there? You know what I mean? To me, that would be really interesting to track this offseason. So I'm hopeful that he sticks around. But, yeah, he definitely would be on the ego list. But, Gundy would be right at the top. Gus would be right at the top. And to the point of the whole conversation from the beginning, if you were a UCF fan, I would imagine you've got to be rightfully frustrated with what you've seen this year. I don't think anybody was feeling like Big 12 championship was on the way, but certainly in contention for it, and they're nowhere close to that. So fortunately, they got that big win last week and did it in style. And with Dylan Risk, maybe you're onto something there. Certainly, the offense looked pretty good in his hands. So if he's got the juice, then it'll be a fun closing stretch and kind of make up for some of the prior disappointments. But was it a flash in the pan? That's what we'll find out the rest of the way. But that was a good, different look than what we had seen leading into last week, which was, yes, just a big, massive ball of disappointment that had you feeling like the program needed to possibly make a change here pretty soon, because that's the trajectory they were riding until last week.
I had Utah 2nd, Arizona 3rd, and Oklahoma State 4th, and Kansas 5th.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this next year. I can't do any worse than that, can I? I don't know how. West Virginia 6th, they're kind of teetering. Iowa State was 7th, Tech 8th. Then we don't know where they're going to end up, but they kind of gave themselves new life. Colorado 11th. Ouch. BYU 15th. Arizona State 16th. I don't mind it. I admit it. Last year I screwed up West Virginia, and this year I screwed up pretty much everybody in the conference. Still games to be played.
So did everybody.
No, there's some people that had what are you going to call it?
Even BYU,
a parlay.
Even BYU people didn't think BYU was going to be good.
No, someone had a parlay of BYU, Iowa State, Tech, and K-State.
Yeah. No,
or Colorado.
Nobody knew how this conference was going to go, and nobody had A&M being at first in the SEC at any point. So yeah, it's a new era, because this is the first year. It's almost like a new whole league has started because of realignment and all this, and everything we believed before is only partially true now. And and it's not it's case by case. It's not blanket anything. So we have to, expect that we're going to be way off. It's a lot like the NFL. Look at the NFL every year. How many years? Oh, this is the Chargers year. They had this and this and this and this and this. Oh, no.
He's about to jump on, and we'll have to have kind of a sliver of a segment, because remember, we're pretty loaded in the 5 o'clock hour. Craig's off the radar. Evan Miyakawa in the 5 o'clock hour, plus John McClain in the top 5. So he blanked on it, so he's about to jump on with us if he possibly can. It is hard. That's back-to-back years where I've blanked the bet on a couple of predictions, except this year it was worse than what I did last year. Last year I just missed on West Virginia. Most everything else was okay. But this year, man. Now, there are still 4 games left, and you never know. Some teams can go from 4-2 to whatever. So we got him, Garrett. J.J. Joe, Baylor color analyst, Baylor Radio, former Baylor quarterback, joins us on 365 Sports. JJ, we were talking about the depth of the league and surprise teams or whatever. And all of a sudden, your alma mater has some mojo. We thought they had it last week, but they followed up, won another game, dramatic fashion. As a former player, watching how that thing went down, how much fun was that?
Hey, it was a ton of fun, Smoak, and I apologize for being late, man. Work got in the way. But in any case, it was great to see. It was a great feeling. I felt really great for the guys because they're finally starting to get a little payoff from all the hard work and kind of heartache that they had early in the season. So very satisfying. It was great to see the 2013, 2014 guys. Those guys gave us special times and special experiences. So it was just a really, you couldn't script it any better way, I'll tell you.
JJ, the TCU monkey on the back was heavy. I mean, it was really heavy, and you could see it in many of the games over the last decade where bad TCU teams are doing well, about to win the game, and Baylor's like, here we go again against TCU. How did that not creep in on Saturday?
No, I mean, I'm sure it did. I'm sure, it creeped in for all of us to think that, we would maybe let it slide away. But I think what this team has done over the last few weeks is they've proven, hey, look, that, if they get in a pickle, they've been able to run the ball. And that's really, to me, been the big difference in the success of the last 3 weeks versus those first few weeks. If you remember, basically, if Sawyer didn't do it, I mean, it wasn't happening. And now he could turn around and hand it to Dawson or hand it to Bryson. And that's been huge, I think, to calm things down and then give these guys confidence that, hey, look, we can salt the game away if we need to.
I think this Bryson Washington kid might have a little something to him, JJ. What do you think?
Yeah, man. What I like about it, I think I wrote it for you guys this week. I said, it's great to have those two guys kind of, Dawson, he ate the prior week. And then last week, I think probably Bryson was over there watching him. And I think he did, because I think what you saw, they're two different runners. But I think you saw with Bryson, he actually made a couple people missing at different times with a cut. He doesn't have the wiggle that Dawson has, but, he has the explosiveness and the speed. And if he can start making people at least miss him, even if it's a one-cut thing, kind of like what Abram Smith did for us, man, he'll do really well here.
How much did that push on the run before the field goal, and the clock is running like Shock Linwood back in 2014?
Yeah.
Ted Harrison put together the two plays together.
I saw that.
Yeah. How eerie was that in a way?
It's real eerie, man. So I saw that on, I think it was Twitter. I saw this kind of montage where they put them side by side, and I remember watching it. It's like, you have these periods of deja vu in your life, and I was sitting in the booth, and I said, I think I looked over at John. I said, how far was the field goal in 2014? And it did look so eerie. It just felt like we had seen this before, but albeit they're 10 years apart.
It was mirror. Have you seen the video side by side? It looks like it's mirror image.
It does. It really is. You're right. There's one hash and the other's on the. Yeah, right. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. JJ, you mentioned the running game. The offensive line at the beginning of this year, really they were not anything to write home about at all. And they're not yet the 93 Cowboys, but they have been knocking people back. Do you think it was just as simple as shuffling the lineup like they did a little bit?
No, I think the off week helped them. I think that's the first thing. The off week helped them. I think they weren't getting a lot better, but I think they were slowly getting better. But I really do believe putting moving Lingell in their guard, kicking I'm forgetting the lineman now. I can't believe
Fugar.
Yeah, Fugar out to tackle. It just, sometimes you don't know, man. It's just lines are it's all about continuity and working together and all that. And I think something about that mix, and it helps to play opponents that are not as stout as Utah and BYU were. I mean, and Colorado played as good against the run. So I think that helped. The whatever you want to call it, the chemistry between those five guys seems to be working. And it's been huge to the outcome of these last few games. So I think Ebosele will be a really good lineman here. I think they're really hoping that he would take a leap, because you look at him, he's a lineman. He can play on Sundays if he just figures out kind of the technical part of it. And he's got a little edge to him too. But I think, he really needs some technical work. And at times I would see him struggle some depending on who he was going against. And I think, making this switch is not a knock on him. It's just saying, hey, these are a few veteran guys that kind of have some games under their belt. And Beausoleil just needs a little bit more developmental time.
So 4th and 9 at the TCU 44, 16 seconds remaining. I'm thinking if you don't convert this, which I wasn't feeling good about that, TCU is 1 or 2 plays from field goal range and winning the game in another agonizing fashion. I'm sure I wasn't alone in that. Or you convert it, which they did, J.J. Joe, Sawyer Robertson to Michael Trigg, and you go on and win the game. I was curious your thoughts at the time and then your thoughts as it unfolded and afterwards as they obviously made a play that helped them win that football game.
Well, for anybody who was listening to our broadcast, probably heard me 3 times say, there's no way you go for it. You know what, you go for it. You punt this. Not against this offense. You punt this ball. And we called a timeout, if I'm not mistaken. And I said, he's got to punt it. He's got to. And Ricky's saying the same thing I'm saying, right? You got to punt it. But that's why that guy, Aranda is not here and there. Aranda's just kind of right here. And I think he's just very analytical and very data-driven in his approach. And he just felt like, hey, we got to attack. And he made the right call. And that's kind of what you pay the guy to do, make the call. He made it. It worked out. And I'm glad it did. But Baylor still had to go out and execute it. So I really applaud the guys up front. And I applaud Sawyer and Trigg, because that was not as easy as it looked. There was traffic in there. Sawyer had to make an accurate throw. Trigg had to make a contested catch, knowing contact was there and hands, all that. So I'm telling you, man, it was big. And after I cheered, but I was kind of still shaking my head like, man, there's no way I would have did that. But hey, that's Aranda for you.
Was it not kind of karma in a way, showing the balls to go and do that versus what Sonny Dykes did not do when he elected to punt it on 4th and short when it's 4th and 2? You could have put Savion Williams as the Wildcat, right? I just felt like it was almost karma cosmically that Aranda went for the gamble, whereas Dykes kind of played scared football, and it paid off the gamble in the end.
It did. Matter of fact, during that, when Dykes was sitting at 4th and 2.5, and he was in Baylor territory, I was like, there's no way he's punting this ball. And I think Rick and I were going back and forth. And I actually said, dude, he needs to go for it. He cannot punt it. They can't stop our running game. Why would he punt it? And it reminded me of, it's funny, it reminded me of when Baylor, we played Texas. I think it was in 2012. And it was an offensive game. I think it was like a 50-56 game or something.
Uh-huh.
And Browse, we were at the 50 or the 48 or something, and we were trailing or maybe barely ahead. And Browse on 4th and 5, it's a little bit longer, I think it's 4th and 5, decided to punt it. And I was shocked, why is he punting? And then after the game, I asked him, I said, and he was ticked off too, man. He's ticked off at me for a while. Because I asked him on the spot, what were you thinking as you punted that ball away? And he's a little upset, but we got past it. But it reminded me of Dykes. And Texas wouldn't beat us. They went, actually drove down, scored, and they beat us by 6 or 8 or something. And that's what I thought about.
Yeah, 56-50. That's when who was the running back that fumbled near midfield near the end? Because Baylor,
Johnny Jefferson.
No, that was the game of 14.
Game. Sorry, that was another bad memory.
He was from Stony Point, from Round Rock Stony Point.
I forget who it was.
Glasgow Martin.
Glasgow.
Yeah. And what does it say, JJ, that Aranda would make that call knowing that he is on the line right now to turn this team into a team that has a winning season and gets to a bowl game? You think that came into his play at all?
Or I think that's why you did it.
Or is he too deep for that?
No, I think Coach Aranda read that. I think in his mind, I'm not going to get a better go at this than this.
Yep.
And if I give them the ball, even if I give these guys the ball at their, say, more likely you kick it in the end zone, I get it to 20. But these guys, they've been blitzing us, man. I'm not as comfortable with my back end right now. We got to take this week off and really go at it because we're not playing the ball good in the air. Guys that are good on the edge are killing us in a sense. So I think he looked at it like, hey, look, this is about as best I'm going to have it. And I think he just looked at it analytically. this is probably the best chance I have to win this game. And he was right.
JJ, what'd you think of just the atmosphere, the blackout, the official blackout, the celebration of the 13 and 14 teams, having all those guys back? I said it on the Bearcast today. I thought it was really cool just to simply see like Corey Coleman at the facility taking a picture with his kid and his girl in front of this big mural of him.
Right.
I just thought stuff like that was really cool to see. What was it like for you? I'm sure you probably bumped into a few folks.
Man, it was great to see these guys, man. I'm telling you, because they gave us so many great memories. And part of my concern is that, with all the stuff that went on, I'm not rehashing that. It just seems like we've kind of acted like, in some senses, that didn't happen almost. Like, we don't celebrate it. Mm-hmm. So it's great to see us celebrate those young men. It was great to see those young men come back in such a mass group, and for us to kind of celebrate them. And I'll tell you, the first thing I thought about when I saw the scene of the blackout and kind of the vibe and the music and the kids were into it, man, as I thought about those days. Because, if you remember, man, it was thumping, and that's what it brought me back to. So it was great to have them there to experience that. And hopefully we'll continue to celebrate those teams, because those young men did big things for us.
JJ, I know that there will be some people who will never, move past, but I do think that for a lot of the people involved directly, there was a catharsis there for coaches, for staff members, to just be able to now move on with their lives and enjoy the good times that were had when they were there.
Yeah, I think so. That's why I was glad to see them come and be there, and us to have the moment. It's so much deja vu. It's a trip to play TCU. It was a trip to win on the last second field goal with the 14 guys here. It was a trip to have the blackout, and you have the scene that reminded you of when those guys were here. So I think it was cathartic. It was, I think, for me. And I just, like I'll say, I hope that we celebrate those young men. And I know it's not the right thing to say, as well as those coaches, for the work that they did, because they did do a lot. And I know that's not the politically correct thing to say, to kind of get this program there to where, it was. And I hope that we just don't act like it's something that happened that's a stain that we don't never want to celebrate. Because in some sense, it just felt that way for some reason for many years.
JJ, good to hear that from you. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on with us. Go back to work.
All right, my man.
Baylor Radio analyst JJ Joe with us today on 365 Sports. Craig's off the radar around the corner. Also, Evan Miyakawa on college basketball that launched last night. And we'll also have John McClain and Paul's Top 5, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. 5 locations in Waco. That wasn't long ago. There were none. Bob Mock has been in the pizza business for a long, long time. Delivered pizzas, has run some stores, and now he owns 5 locations in the Waco area. Good dude. He's also someone that does some work at McClain Stadium. I saw him a couple of times this year with what he does. He loves sports, and he, of course, loves pizza. Marco's Pizza, apparently a lot of people do. Fastest growing pizza bread in America. And that's what they do. Marco's Pizza. Go online, marcos.com, to find the various discounts and specials for this week. Certain code numbers, you can call it in, or you can have them deliver or you pick it up. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Tuesdays, Thursdays around 4:45 or just whenever. And here we are today with the first edition of the week. Plenty to talk about as the NFL trade deadline has been taking place today. Also got some baseball free agency that's starting to kind of percolate a little bit. And, of course, college football taking up almost every night of the week at this point. So we'll have some games to talk about here in just a second. But I want to start off with the NFL trade deadline. Not a bunch of blockbusters to report today, but there were a couple of significant trades as far as this group of people here goes, and just my interest level in hearing you guys and what you have to say as far as a couple of the moves that were made. And the Cowboys, we're out there, baby. They're going out there and going all in. And I got more on them in a second, but Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers, now a member of the Dallas Cowboys. They get him for a 4th-round draft pick and will also, in addition to Mingo, receive a 7th-round pick. So former Ole Miss star, still a young guy, just 2 years in the league. And 2nd-round pick, so pretty high talent level. But obviously looking for, hopefully a lot more in Dallas now, as they could really use any and all kinds of help. But, Paul, what was your reaction to just knowing the circumstances they're in right now? Like, did this register on your radar? Did this mean anything?
What did this mean? Not in a way I think the Cowboys wanted to for a lot of people.
Fair enough.
Because, one, if the Carolina Panthers are willing to get rid of a guy in his 2nd year,
right,
that's maybe tells you something. Now, I can give you the pros of it, and I will, but the cons are they traded Jonathan Mingo for more than the Chiefs gave up for DeAndre Hopkins. That's not a good idea. They traded Jonathan Mingo for more than they got back for Amari Cooper. So they don't know how to do this. They are historically bad at trading. Like, even when they make good trades, it's still not, like, they still give up too much. They don't know how to do it. It's ridiculous. This is just another example of that. Now, the good news is you've got him under control for the rest of this year and 2 more years. Dak comes back. He's a big body. He's really talented. The next coach, because it will not be Mike McCarthy, might be able to do something with him. So we'll see, if it's a good play long-term. I don't mind them making a move at a deadline that's long-term. I mind the cost of it. But also, given where they are right now and what I think you're about to say, it's not going to do anything for them this year.
Yes, because the big news with the Cowboys is Dak Prescott is out for multiple weeks due to a hamstring injury. Took place on Sunday against the Falcons in a loss to ATL, and it was confirmed, I should say, that he suffered a hamstring injury after undergoing an MRI after leaving the second half. So that actually turned out to be worse than they were expecting. So they got the worse MRI look than they were hoping for, and as a result, that has placed him in a situation where he could go uninjured reserve, which means you miss at least 4 games, but he is going to miss significant time 2, 3, 4, whatever games it ends up being, and they are flailing. But you're looking at like
at least 4. He's going on IR.
He is going to go on IR.
Yeah, that's what Jerry said this morning.
Okay,
and it's just so unlike them to do that.
I was just saying it wasn't official, but if it is official, then yeah, he has to miss at least 4.
Yet,
normally,
normally
they're one of those. He's out 2 to 6 weeks.
Well,
well 4 is between 2 and 6, so that would still apply.
Yeah, IR for this Cowboys team means you're done. You're not coming back off IR now. This team is bad. They're really bad. They're really bad in a lot of positions. You're not going to waste Dak coming back because they're not making the playoffs.
Last time they traded for a receiver when they were under 500, it was Amari Cooper, and they went to the playoffs.
Here's this bit again where he tries to sugarcoat the Cowboys like they overcome these things so easily.
Quarterback was available. Yeah. Amari Cooper was an all-pro when they traded for him.
This Mingo kid, the worst. He was just waiting for the right opportunity.
Yeah, whatever. He's the worst. He's the worst receiver right now on the Panthers.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's not like being the worst receiver on, say, the Packers, who have 6 good ones.
Yeah.
You know, like they just can't get to all of them. It's the worst receiver on the Panthers. This was not the best thing, and then Jerry's going to turn around and go, see, I was all in. I said this to Royden Ogletree earlier. Jerry Jones is the most Jerry Jones he's ever Jerry Jones.
He's peak Jerry.
But he's sadly not the most Jerry Jones that he will ever Jerry Jones. It's getting worse by the minute up there.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys now without their big franchise quarterback who signed that massive deal this offseason. It always works that way too, doesn't it? You got your money, and now all of a sudden your body's breaking down and you're starting to get injured. It's like clockwork, man. But they are 3-5 and will now be without Dak for who knows how long, at least a month it appears. And they have, the Eagles upcoming this weekend at home. So that'll be interesting on Sunday afternoon. But outside of that, I mean, maybe you saw some. Oh, yeah, no, the one I wanted to mention, the one that applies to 3 of us in here. The Commanders did make a trade as they're in the hunt. And it wasn't just for show or anything along those lines, just doing something to do it. It was actually a move to make their defense that much better under Dan Quinn as they went out and traded for Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. He is joining the Commanders in exchange for 3rd and 4th round 2025 picks, along with a 2025 6th round pick. And so that is a part of the package, and I'll clarify on that. But basically, the biggest gist of this is Marshawn Lattimore is now a member of the Washington Commanders. They pick up another big-time corner, and they are – you talk about all in. It feels like the Washington Commanders are actually all in, and they're saying, hey, we've got a window here. Let's go out and make a move, and let's go get a guy who can help us win some playoff games.
Look, I think that there are Washington fans that if Josh Harris told them to, all shave their heads and paint them burgundy and gold, they would. Like, they are all in for this guy, and now he's doing it for them, the fans. There is – I don't know. I thought it was Knicks fans for a long time, but it's Washington fans that have been the most abused over the last 30 years. And Josh Harris in year 1 is already, paying it forward for him.
Yep. No, I'm excited. I love what they're doing. The fact that they're in the middle of the season and they actually are trying to acquire somebody to get better because they're good. That hasn't happened, and I can't remember unless it was a fraud trade. I'm sorry, I can't use that word after yesterday. Unless it was just a trade, just to make a trade. The fact that they're doing that is great.
Yeah, there was confusion on exactly what the deal entails, but it is looking like the Saints will get a 3rd, a 4th, and a 6th. And the Commanders will get Lattimore and a 5th, but like these things are still kind of like crossing T's and dotting I's. So they gave up 3 draft picks. That's not nothing, but they are making moves to win now. They're 7-2, and they have now added to a cornerback room that you could argue is maybe one of their weaker areas. So that's a good move, it appears, on the surface at least. And those were a couple of just the more interesting things from the trade deadline. I didn't feel like – I know like most of the articles are going back to like counting everything that's happened, like the DeAndre Hopkins trade.
Right.
And it's like, no, I'm more focused on today. As far as today goes, those were a couple of the bigger moves that were made as the trade deadline comes and goes. So there is that. Meanwhile, Couple of games in college football tonight I want to mention before we head on out of here. Bowling Green is at Central Michigan. That's 6:30 on ESPN2. Bowling Green, big favorites here in this game. They're 4-4 on the year. Central Michigan, the Chippewas, 3-5. So that'll be going on 6:30, as I mentioned, on ESPN2. And 7 o'clock on ESPN, you'll have Miami of Ohio, 4-4 at 3-5. Ball State, so some action there. Of course, you've got the college football playoff television show later on tonight, which will be 6 Central on ESPN. So basically, they'll roll from the CFP show into Miami, Ohio versus Ball State. So got some college football on tap for tonight. And then just the other couple of notes that I wanted to make mention of had to do not with football, but with baseball. And Nathan Eovaldi helped the Rangers win a World Series 2 years ago, was a former Boston Red Sox as well, a Red Sox star as well, and he is going to be out there on the free agent market as he opted out of his contract with the Rangers, had a $20 million player option for next season, but he is going to go test the waters outside, and I think kind of just given how last year's season went, everybody got their fill of the fun from the World Series, and then it's like, all right, back to normal now, and let's kind of figure out what's best for all of us rather than running it back, so to speak. They tried to do that. It didn't work out, so Nathan Eovaldi is going to go out there and see what other teams have as far as offers go.
He was nails in 2023, of course, as were others. Montgomery, who they couldn't sign because he wanted a lot of money. They didn't have it. I did see a note from Chris Young that they will have more money available in the offseason, but still not quite as much as maybe you want because the TV deal is still kind of weird because of what's happened with Bally and all the regional type of stuff. But they will have more money at their disposal, but not quite as much as perhaps we would want as Rangers fans.
They're seemingly getting as screwed as anybody in that whole ordeal, it seems like, at least. And at the worst time, when you are coming off of a World Series and wanting to continue to win, and your money's not what it should be. Also, the Astros did a formality. They extended a qualifying offer to now free agent third baseman Alex Bregman. He gets until November 19th, so 2 weeks from today, to accept the offer, reject the offer. But either way, he's going to be out there testing the free agent market. And I haven't dug deep on his potential suitors, but it seems like it would be just about anybody out there would like to have Alex Bregman, even though he's getting up there in years. Not a lot of confidence that he will be back in Houston, but I guess we will see. That opportunity is still out there. But for now, Houston has done their bare minimum and the formality, as I mentioned, in extending a qualifying offer. So I'm very interested to see where he goes. I mean, he's such a pivotal piece of that whole dynasty over the last few years that Houston's built up. So to see him leave, I mean, you kind of look around and there's Altuve. Correa's already been gone, and other guys have kind of come and gone. So maybe Alex Bregman is also out the door, and a lot of people sure seem to think so.
That's a bummer for the Astros, but I don't really say those words that often. But Altuve basically walked in and told the front office, "You're re-signing Bregman," and they're like, "Yeah, okay, thanks." That's not how they do things. He's over 30 now, so he's going to go get a big deal, but. I don't know where it's going to be, but, I hope it's somewhere where I like him.
Yeah.
Because I've never liked him.
I've never liked Alex Bregman, yeah, so I'm right there with you. And if I don't ever get to like him, that's fine too. But there's a few things off the radar.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. Yeah, he's always been kind of just, I don't know, he's probably a guy that if he plays for your favorite team, you love him. Like maybe a little bit of a Danny Ainge type. Hell of a player. Won World Series, won a bunch of big games, but, he's not somebody that I've always been a big fan of. All right, when we come back, Evan Miyakawa on college basketball, which launched last night with all the opening games. 3 Big 12 teams are playing tonight. His thoughts about the power struggle at the top and maybe some analytics that he has. We'll have him on with Zoom or video link. And then John McClain at 5:30 on the NFL trade deadline. Some of that of what Craig just brought up. Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, 1943, they opened up their doors. December of 2022, just about 2 years ago, they opened up their brand new facility east of I-35 on Highway 6 and also Loop 340. If you need anything, from nuts and bolts to heavy-duty steel, pipe, metal, and more, or all the equipment you need to build something, they can help you with that. And they will do that for commercial or real estate. If you're a weekend warrior or someone who's a contractor, they will help you out. If you want to build something, they can make sure that they can at least suggest the contractors that they know and they trust, that you can trust, so you get to know, and again, that your project does not get delayed for over and over and over again. They have a beautiful place. The distribution center is unbelievable. 18-wheelers and haulers to as small as something that loading up a pickup truck or a flatbed trailer. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem like you've got a flight that's being canceled and don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com. Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
College basketball opened up last night. Everybody in the Big 12 who played won. A couple of close games. UCF upsetting 13th-ranked A&M. But most everybody blew out the opponent. And there was one Big 12 team that just flat got hammered. Baylor at Gonzaga. Evan Miyakawa joins us, evanmia.com, analytics and stats and data and all that. Evan, that was ugly. I know you're not here just to look at that, but geez, my God, your thoughts about what happened.
Yeah, my analytics going into this game definitely liked Gonzaga a lot more than most people did. I think most people viewed this as a toss-up. A lot of people were kind of edging towards Baylor. Going into the season, my metrics have rated Gonzaga really highly, and I think this should be a point of encouragement for Baylor fans. They have the best offense in the country, and that was my opinion and what my model showed before this game even happened. And then we saw this on full display last night, over 100 points for Gonzaga against Baylor. And so I thought Gonzaga would be not a comfortable favorite in this game, but definitely would win this game by, between 5 and 10 points. That's kind of what my model was spitting out. Certainly did not predict them to absolutely smack Baylor in this game. But all things considered, I think Gonzaga is one of the biggest threats to win the national title. I have them number 2 in the country right now behind Houston. So I definitely don't think Baylor should be super, super discouraged about this result because they probably played the best offense they're going to see all year. And they certainly played one of the best teams in the country. And, this is a team that has some younger pieces, some new pieces. It may just take a little bit of time for them to gel, but certainly not the way you want to start your season last night.
No, absolutely not, Evan. Do you think, though, long-term, Baylor, do the numbers show you that this will bear out? I mean, they have not played very much together at all. Whatever they played in the exhibitions and whatever's happened in practice. Like this is maybe 3 guys who have experience playing a long time together of a team that's really talented, but again, not played together.
Yeah, I think honestly what I would take away from this game is there was no one on the team who played well last night, and I would chalk that up more to coaching, having your team ready than individual talent issues on this team. I mean, VJ Edgecombe has been, stealing all the preseason hype in terms of potentially being the best freshman in the country, best freshman in the Big 12. Early on in this game, he had a couple turnovers. He just kind of looked out of it. He only finished 2 of 11 for the field. And that just kind of goes across the rest of the roster. You'd probably argue the best player last night was Rob Wright. And honestly, a lot of that just came down to determination, confidence, and energy as opposed to an actual skill thing. So when I looked at this team last night, as I was watching them getting beat by Gonzaga, my thought was like, okay, this team is probably going to be pretty good come February, March. It might just take a little bit of time for these pieces to gel, but this team certainly has one of the higher ceilings in the country. And one of the things that I noted with them in the preseason is that there really is a lot of potential ways that this season could go for Baylor. They could be an absolutely elite team. They could also disappoint just because of all the new pieces and the reliance on key freshmen like Edgecombe and Rob Wright. That gives them as high a ceiling as anybody, but also means there's a lot of room for error too.
Evan, I think the rest of the results in the Big 12, save for the one I'm about to mention, were all pretty much just as expected. But how about UCF beating Texas A&M to get a huge win for that program at home, a top 15 win? Your thoughts on that from both perspectives, both the Knights but also the Aggies?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they got to open the season at home against Texas A&M certainly gave them an edge in this game in terms of, having the home crowd behind them, but we certainly weren't expecting what we saw last night. And I honestly do think that this does kind of speak a little bit to Texas A&M in the sense that their star player is Wade Taylor. And Wade Taylor is one of the better players in the country, but he's also a player who is known for racking up a lot of shots and not necessarily making a lot of them. And if he's not having an on night, then that can be a problem and sort of hinder where this team can go. And, on the final possession of the game last night, Texas A&M had 3 pretty good 3-point looks to tie this game. None of them went down. So, I do think that really just tells you Texas A&M, on a night when they're clicking, they're going to be one of the best teams in the SEC, but they also have a ceiling to them when their best player in Wade Taylor isn't doing well. Where else are they going to turn? So for me, I think this is really encouraging from UCF that they were able to get this kind of game to, cause this kind of trouble for Texas A&M. And, I still think it's going to be an uphill battle for them this year in the Big 12. They're certainly not in that top tier or 2 of the conference, but who knows? Anything could happen, and if they keep this momentum going, they could be kind of in the at-large picture come the spring.
I saw that you, during the Gonzaga-Baylor game, it's a part of what you do, the kill shot. Gonzaga kill shot was and they seemed like they had like a plethora of kill shots. Explain to everybody your data or how you follow the kill shot, what it means.
Yeah, so the kill shot is any time that a team scores 10 or more unanswered points in a game. And this is a way of measuring how many times a team is able to flip the script and really put the momentum on their side, and whether that's going on a 10-0 run or giving them one up. And so a lot of times in games like this, when it's supposed to be tightly contested, a team that has more of these types of runs really does wrestle the game away. it was fairly tight early on. I think Gonzaga was up by 2 or 3, and then they went on a kill shot early, and it was a double-digit lead for the rest of the game. And that's really, Baylor never really had a shot after that. Obviously, the score got more lopsided than that, but that's really what stole the momentum. And so for them, early in the first half, having that 10-0 run to kind of wrestle the lead away and comfortably have it the rest of the game, I really think set the tone for the whole 40 minutes.
So for those who have not seen your coverage with us, and we knew you when you were in diapers, and we kind of helped you along the way, but your stuff is taken off. National writers refer to it, and obviously there's a lot of indexes, etc. Tell everybody kind of how you got into this, and then also what you do.
Sure. Well, my humble beginnings were while I was getting my PhD at Baylor, living in Waco from 2017 to 2020-ish, and ended up finishing with my PhD at Baylor in 22. But basically, while I was in grad school there, I was working on getting my PhD in statistics and sort of, college basketball has always been my love, and so I was, messing around with different kinds of algorithms and statistics, and decided to make a website out of it and just do it as a side project initially, and it's just organically grown over the last several years. So much so that, so a lot of coaches and media people are using it, and I was able to leave my full-time job doing consulting for NBA teams to do this site full-time for college basketball specifically. So it's been such a fun ride. I'm so thankful to the Lord for this opportunity. And as you said, Sikkim 365 was one of the first places that I ever did interviews like this. And so certainly you guys have played a huge part in sort of, exposing other people to what I'm doing and helping me getting practice with this sort of thing.
Yeah. Evan, who do you, in the Big 12, Kansas played Howard.
Wait, he had to turn off the vacuum cleaner.
Oh, yeah. It's like in my house. The vacuum cleaner's always going because I live with a clean freak. So, but Kansas had the win over Howard last night. That was really a huge one. But they're also a little bit like Baylor. There's a lot of teams in the Big 12 that are like Baylor that they haven't played together a lot. Do you think we'll see maybe some of this as they play the tougher opponents early on before they gel?
I think there's a chance. Honestly, think that what Baylor is doing in terms of playing a team like Gonzaga, most teams are trying to do the opposite, where they're trying to have easy cakewalk games early on and not have to worry too much about getting beat in a game like this. But I think this actually sets the tone for your season. I know a lot of people, including myself, really do encourage teams to go out and play tough teams like this early in the non-conference schedule, because losing to Gonzaga, who's going to be one of the best teams in the country, doesn't really hurt your resume that much, doesn't really hurt your reputation. All it does is prepare you for the difficult Big 12 games that are coming up. And I think the opposite thing, what you could do is you could play a bunch of cakewalk games, go 9-0, 10-0, and then just have a wake-up call once you get into conference play when games really matter. So I love when teams do this, and I love, a team like UCF. It paid huge dividends for them last night, beating a big team, a ranked team in Texas A&M on their home court. For Baylor, obviously a little bit of a different story there, but they've figured out really quickly the things they need to learn and grow. They've got Arkansas coming up, another tough test. I think this is good for them, and I think it's going to make them much more battle-tested when we get to January, February, when these games start really counting and you want to build momentum towards March.
Yeah, a lot of teams that won last night won by 24-50 or whatever it was. I looked at all the margins for error. What would you rather do? Get your brains beat in, maybe have a scar and lose confidence, but you're playing somebody like Gonzaga and then Arkansas with Calipari. This is not like opening up, with all due respect, because one year they lost to, SFA, one year lost to Houston, Baptist, to lose those games, but you're playing nobody.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, at the end of the day, I don't think coaches should be too concerned, again, about like how others perceive games like this, losses like this, because it's so much of a learning experience. And ultimately, if the goal of your season is to make a Final Four or win 6 games in the tournament, I think it shouldn't really matter too much how others perceive you. It should all be about what is going to strengthen your team. And so I do think this pays off in the long run.
All right, Evan, thank you. Do you have one of those ground control, like vacuum cleaners that's going around? Is that what that is?
Yes, unfortunately, my Roomba had it scheduled scheduled cleaning the one time this week in this room while this is going on, and it's too far away for me to tap it off my foot, and I'm using my phone as a camera, so we just had to roll with it. I'm sorry.
It was fantastic. Live TV. I knew it had to be something like that, but you got it. Thanks for your time, buddy. Evan Maya again, or Mia, MIYA.com. You can go on the website, and it's fantastic. It's like overload of a bunch of data and information, analytics on this and that, including matchups. I saw his tweet yesterday that he really liked the Gonzaga game. And Gonzaga was, I don't know if they were favored. I'm sure they were. But he said, no, I really like this offense. They are loaded. What was it? 81% of their scoring is back. 70-something% of the rebounds or assists. They have a team, Mark Few does. And don't you know that felt good for them after the 2021 ass-kicking that Baylor gave them to win the national title up in Indianapolis. When we come back, John McClain on the NFL trade deadline that Craig touched on and what it all means, the Texans, and more. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They are the people that you can count on for your automotive needs, whatever those needs may be, whether you're looking to buy a brand new vehicle, whether you're looking to trade in your vehicle, whether you're looking to get into a pre-owned vehicle, whether you're looking to just get your car worked on, they can get all of those things done for you over at Richard Carr, and I can attest to their customer service and also their work on banged up vehicles. As I got into a little bit of a situation about a month ago, had to take it over to Richard Carr. Front end was all messed up, and it is back, and it is better than ever. But they have big savings going on right now as the calendar turns from October to November. The savings are still terrifying, like Halloween was still hanging around. And get to the scary savings event on Richard Carr's lot right now to take full advantage of pre-owned cars and trucks. It's no secret the GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road if you're looking to buy new. It's got a multi-pro tailgate, first-class interior, plus power to spare. The GMC Sierra is the truck for Texans who want to drive the best, and right now you can save $8,000 or more on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock. Sierra's four-wheel drive versions have even bigger savings that you can check out, so find Sierra trucks right now with big savings and several under $40,000. As I mentioned, they've got the lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. If you want value and confidence when looking for pre-owns, their lot has that for you and plenty to choose from, and their goal is always 100% credit approval. So whatever you're looking to do, treat yourself with a new car or truck, or get into a used vehicle. But regardless of what you're looking to do, find monster savings over at Richard Carr right now off Highway 6 in the Imperial exit.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights, face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal's.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports, David Smoak with Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak every afternoon. We're on until, 3 until 6. 365 Sports also with the Sports Tonight coming up at 10:30 on the local CW. We're now joined by Hall of Fame columnist John McClain, who covers the NFL like a blanket, along with many more things as well. John, Craig, earlier in a segment on Tuesdays and Thursdays called Off the Radar, where we get into some NFL outside of college football notes, brought up the NFL trade deadline. Did anybody today make a trade that you think made them much better?
Well, first of all, guys wouldn't be available if they were playing great. You see a lot of guys moving. I tweeted this today. Guys who haven't done jack squat this season, or maybe in recent seasons, get traded, and everybody acts like, they're lifesavers. They're heaven sent. Now, if you're DeAndre Hopkins and you go from Will Levis and Mason Rudolph to Patrick Mahomes, and you're not the receiver you used to be, but you're still good, it can pay off, as we saw last night. But today, the best one I saw was the Commanders trading for Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, who also can play safety. Now, he's not the player he used to be, but he can still play. And I thought that was the best deal I've seen, and I know you hate that. And those like my wife hates it. I told her today about it. And I thought that just shows how serious the Commanders are about thinking they are a legitimate chance to do some damage in the playoffs, not just hold off the Eagles in the NFC East. And I love teams that make deals like that, because so what if you're giving up a 5? The worst trade was the Cowboys giving up, a 4 for a receiver who hadn't done jack squat the last 2 years.
You mean the worst receiver on the Panthers, John?
Yeah. He wasn't even playing for the Panthers. My goodness. But, Jerry was all in on the trading deadline. So Marshawn Lattimore was the best move, and I forgot the receiver's name now.
Mingo, Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, Jonathan Mingo,
who
was way overrated when he came out of college, was the worst deal.
John, Zadarius Smith was the other one that kind of jumped out at me to the Lions. Obviously, these are the Browns, like you said, but hopping into that defensive line and that team right now seems to be a good thing for anybody, because they look to me like the best team in the NFL by a long shot.
Well, I think they're the best team in the NFL. I'm going to see them Sunday night in Houston, in which they'll probably pulverize the Texans. And the one thing they have not done really well without Aiden Hutchinson is rush the quarterback. But everybody rushes the quarterback. C.J. Stroud's the most pressured quarterback in the NFL because his interior offensive line has been horrible, despite having first, second-round picks at left guard and center, and I paid free agent at right guard. So Smith had 5 sacks for the Browns, and that's more impressive when you think he hasn't been had a lead where he could tee off on quarterback. So he's 32. I think he's 32 years old. He's got a lot of money. Browns are picking up a lot of that. And, just like DeAndre Hopkins, he's got to feel like he died and went to heaven. And Marshawn Lattimore, same thing. When you go from the Drags to a team that's competing for the Super Bowl, think of how that rejuvenates you.
John, we got the coaching carousel already starting up as well. Saints fired Dennis Allen after the 7th straight loss for that franchise, so I suppose it's not much of a surprise, but any thoughts on that move and the Saints now moving forward?
Well, he said that wasn't what the GM, Mickey Loomis, wanted to do at this point, but that the owner, Gail Benson, was listening to the fan base and the media. And Dennis Allen's a really good defensive coach and Aggie, but he's a terrible offensive coach. Terrible head coach. 4-12 records fired by the Raiders. Now, they had a winning record last year, and everybody thought they were going to be better this year, and they've been worse. Started 2-0, averaging 47 yards a game, and they haven't won since. That's what happens when you lose to the Panthers. And so he'll end up being a defensive coordinator somewhere when he comes back. Special team coach took over. That whole organization needs an overhaul. They have the worst cap situation in the league. They always seem to do. Going back to Sean Payton, and they just redid contracts, kept pushing it down the road. They need to swallow the pill and be terrible, get high picks, and get their salary cap in order.
So the deadline is over. There is nothing now you can do other than somebody that's on the open market, correct?
Right. You can get guys on waivers or guys who have been cut and are out on the street.
All right. So let me ask you this. What was, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of them in your head. Amari Cooper helped the Cowboys when they traded for him go from like 3-4, 3-5. They made the playoffs. He was dynamic coming from the Raiders. Is there a one or two of the trade deadline deals that was the best that you can remember?
Oh gosh, you caught me flat-footed on that, David.
Sorry.
I can't remember. I'd have to think back through the years. The one where we saw last night where Hopkins has caught 2 touchdown passes, he's going to help their offense because he's not a guy that's going to run deep post routes. He's a guy who's a possession receiver, good hands, good route runner. And when you get down the red zone, he can catch passes, and Patrick Mahomes can get you to the red zone. And they don't know what's happening with Rashee Rice, injuries, possible suspension next season. So that was a good move. And he's one of those guys that ought to feel like he died and went to heaven, just like Amari Cooper said when he went to Buffalo, although he's hurt now. So the guys that can put points on the board to get the quarterback are always the most dangerous. And it'll be fun if you're a Commanders fan to see Marshawn Lattimore, what he's going to be able to do for that secondary.
Can I ask one follow-up on this? No, I just went blank. Did the entire NFL take lose their breath when they saw Mahomes? Because it looked like it was more than just him being, it may be dinged. It looked like it might have been a serious leg injury.
Absolutely. When he's having to be helped off the field, first thing I thought about, I didn't think about his ankle, which he'd already injured and was limited last week. I thought, man, I hope that's not an ACL. I saw that happen. Stephon Diggs 2 weeks ago when he was just making a cut without anybody touching him. And then when he started running around the sideline, you knew he was coming back. If he doesn't get to go in the game, he starts yelling at Andy Reid. And so unless the doctor's telling that, he can't walk, he's going to play. And I thought, Todd Bowles made a terrible mistake. As Troy Aikman pointed out, you're at Arrowhead, you got to go for 2. If you don't make it, there's no shame in that. But as soon as Chiefs won that coin toss and Baker Mayfield looked up to the heavens and kind of shook his head, he knew it was over. Everybody knew it was over. And Todd Bowles said he didn't give hardly any thought to it, which is stupid.
John, the Texans really needed to draft or trade for some offensive linemen. Did they make an effort to do so, or were the guys just not out there?
the guys are not out there. Not one offensive lineman was traded for who's a starter or even a former starter. You got to hang on to them. And of course, they checked with teams. Kenyon Green, their left guard, has just been awful. He got hurt. He's on IR. Number 1 pick, 15th overall from A&M 3 years ago. I don't think he'll ever play for the Texans again. And their center, Juice Scruggs, second-round pick last year, has been awful. Shaq Mason, their right guard, an expensive free agent in his third season. He's given up 7.5 sacks in 9 games. And so I don't know what they've got planned. I do know last year they started 4 backups at Jacksonville, won by 20, and against Pittsburgh and won by 24, and Stroud didn't get sacked. And so I don't know what was the difference because they had the same coach, same system, but those guys are just getting obliterated up front. Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans must have had a dream that when they go up against the Lions on Sunday night, all of a sudden the protection's going to improve. We may see the first one-step drop in history. One step back, claim it.
Dallas with Dak appears to be headed to the IR. That's 4 games. They're about to play the Eagles and Texans and Commanders. That game's on the road. All of them are above 500 and play pretty good football. If, in fact, they don't show not just that they're better, but if they don't win games during these next 2 or 3 games, will he ever play again this year?
That's a good point because that injury is serious. You go on IR, you miss a minimum 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be best to keep him out and let Cooper Rush take the beating or Trey Lance if Rush gets hurt. You know, Micah Parsons is going to come back. I'm not sure when Lawrence is going to come back. And they have had injuries on defense, but as usual, they can't run the ball. I would have cut Zeke Elliott. When you're a bad team and you got discipline problems like him, who was late to a bunch of things, cut him. He's not helping you. Just like that idiot Cincinnati receiver didn't go to the walkthrough the night before. He was seen at a casino by himself playing a slot. They should have cut him immediately. It's amazing what they let players get away with today. But if I'm the Cowboys, I'm thinking about my new coach, and I'm thinking about having a high pick and trying to get some weapons around Dak Prescott. No matter what people think about Dak, he ain't going anywhere. That was assured when he got that big contract, but it would behoove them and him if they actually helped him. And if you got a high pick, you're going to have a chance to get playmakers in there and make immediate impact.
All right. Did you stay up past midnight to watch Baylor get destroyed and humiliated by Gonzaga?
You trying to make me throw up again? I'm in Florida. It started at 11:30, and I took a long nap so I could watch that. And the only thing that bothered me afterward, because all those things you said are true, I thought, now they can't go unbeaten. First unbeaten team since Indiana with Bobby Knight. With all those new players, Edgecombe, you hope that's the worst game he has. None, worst game he has. I was looking at the new guys. And you got that many new players, you're going to struggle. Then I started thinking, well, he's got to play UConn too. So hopefully that schedule that Scott has set them up will help them when they get to the Big 12, which is the best and toughest and most physical conference in the country.
Well, John, basketball might have been a disappointment, but football certainly wasn't on Saturday night out at McClain Stadium. Your thoughts on 37-34 and the 4th and 9 call by Dave Aranda and just all that came with that long anticipated and awaited victory against those rival Frogs?
Well, I'm on a text thread with a bunch of friends of mine who've been going to Baylor games like I have for decades, and I said immediately, got to go for it because I didn't see Hoover setting them up, but it was a great call. Of course, if it hadn't worked and they'd gotten beat, everybody wanted Aranda fired. But, he's been pretty gutsy on those plays. And when it was over, I thought, man, you got to – when Bryson comes from Franklin, I'm pretty sure they didn't have to give him much money. But they better get him some money because there's going to be schools. If he keeps that up, those big state schools, they got all that money piled up, calling him like Ashton Jenny at Boise. Last year, everybody tried to steal him, but he didn't leave. So, and that same thing with Sawyer Robertson. The offensive line run blocking was incredible. What a game. And it was so much fun to watch. And I'm glad they get the week off to prepare for West Virginia. And it's just so exciting. And I'm really happy for Dave Aranda and all the coaches and all the players and the media, because you guys know how much more fun it is when you're talking and writing and broadcasting about a winning team.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what is, if you cover a team, whether you have allegiance to them or not, you want teams that you cover, obviously, to win. It makes everyone happy. But is it better because they're winning, you're covering a team that's good, or the fact that really they've just were in such a bad funk, John, for a couple of years. You did that with the Oilers for a while and the Texans, right?
Absolutely. I've done it. It's my 48th year covering the NFL. I've had some bad teams. Haven't had a team in AFC Championship game since the 79 Oilers. Never had a Super Bowl team. But I'll tell you, you're supposed to be, they tell you in journalism school, you can't be biased. Well, sometimes that bias makes you even madder when they lose. Like when the Texans looked so bad against the Jets, I was looking in my thesaurus for different words going with wretched and rotten, because I've used those so much, and pathetic with a capital P. One time I had to cover a Baylor-Rice game at Rice Stadium. Baylor, Walter Abercrombie was a freshman. He ran all over the Aggies, just had a great game, over 200-something yards in his debut as a starter. So somebody got sick, and they asked me on Saturday if I would cover Baylor at Rice. And I said, sure. I was all fired up. Baylor's going to beat the heck out of Rice. I got out there. Rice beat them. I went down there. I couldn't wait to ask Grant every negative question I thought, and I wrote the probably most negative story ever been written about Baylor. I can't remember when I saw Grant later, and he said, I'm glad you're not covering us on a regular basis.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Hey, man, thank you very much, John.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Second Bear.
That's John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, with us on 365 Sports. Cowboys again with Dak. They have Philadelphia, who seems like they've kind of turned their corner. We haven't said this, and we didn't mention it. The Saquon Barkley reverse hurdle of a defensive player is insane. Like, he could have, he's had the injuries. It's one of those, you land wrong or you get kind of hit a little bit edgy on that, and you land wrong. What an unbelievable spring in his legs. What would it take for you, Garrett, to jump that high? A trampoline?
At least a trampoline.
Yeah. It's unbelievable play.
I'd have to get pulled.
Yeah,
like one of those things. They have bungee cords, but like they're like these rides that go where they like pull you, like that kind of thing would have to be for me. And to bring it back to the Cowboys saw, like the Eagles go, hey, we already have Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, and we had some really good draft picks. They drafted Cooper DeJean. We're going to bring in Saquon Barkley as well. Of course, that happened before. And then they were like, no. You know what we're going to do? We're going to bring back Zeke.
Yeah,
Zeke was better than Saquon one year.
Now, hey, I know they're playing this week, right?
Yeah.
Anything with his status for this week?
They expect him to be
They put him
active.
in the timeout corner, right?
They're going to be active this week.
I wonder if the communication when they signed him was, listen, you're here. We need your leadership. We need you on 3rd or 4th and 1. Maybe you're going to get 10 or 12 carries max per game. Dowdle's the best running back. Cook hasn't done anything either. In fact, he got him a terrible penalty, but oh well. All right. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. They've got a couple of specials. One of them is this, the deal of the week. It's a 10-piece, 16-ounce select New York strip steak for $100, so about $10 per steak. But the weekly specials for right now, including 10% off on all fresh shrimp. They have hot links for $3.25 a pound, chicken wings for $3.50 a pound, boneless and bone-in pork butt for $2.05 or $2.25 per pound. And they have tri-tip at $5.15 a pound, top sirloin steak. Ground tallow, that's 99 cents a pound. If you have and you are going to do tailgating either this weekend, and there's one more Baylor game at home against KU at the end of the month, and you need a place to go to get your charcoal, pellet fuel, marinades and seasonings, cold beer, cold wine, tri-tip, brisket, and more, sausage and wings, Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, they've delivered product to restaurants for years and years and years, and now also to you at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Tuesday edition of the Top 5. I'm Paul Catalina. I know the rankings are coming up later tonight, and you'll all be glued to that. But here's a little bit of prediction of teams who could coast to the playoffs based on their remaining schedule. Also brought to you by Texas Beef House. Our promo code 365 Sports. Go to bidonbeef.com for the next auction. Make sure you use that code for a discount. Number 5, Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, has played a pretty decent schedule when you consider that Boise State was in there, Ohio State's in there, but the last 3 they have, Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington, those should all be wins for the Ducks, and they, already have room to take a loss, but 3 wins, and then you're in the Big Ten championship game. It won't even matter if you're undefeated in the regular season in the Big Ten and go to the championship game. So Oregon, pretty clear path to winning the last 3 in the regular season and into the playoff regardless of what happens in the Big Ten championship game. Number 4, Miami. Oh, that's a little pixelated, but they're dancing. They're having a good time. Miami has Georgia Tech, who did beat them last year. And they've played a little fast and loose. Wake Forest and Syracuse. Now, Syracuse can jump up and bite you. Georgia Tech can jump up and bite you. But the way that Miami's been playing, this should be 3 wins and into the ACC title game, where they'll probably, at this point, face SMU in a game I cannot wait for. I think that would be fantastic for the Ponies to get into the ACC championship in their first year with a chance to take down Miami, who hasn't won the ACC since they've been in it. And if they were able to take down Miami, a team that hasn't won the ACC since they've been in it, in their first year, I would love that. But Miami, very good. Cam Ward ripping it up. Nobody talks about Xavier Restrepo enough nationally. He is awesome. He's amazing. He's fantastic. Number 3, Penn State took the loss to Ohio State. What else is new this past weekend? But their schedule on down the stretch is Wisconsin, Purdue, Maryland, and Minnesota, and then Maryland. Now, Minnesota is pretty good. Washington, Purdue, Maryland, shouldn't have to worry about them. So, Penn State's probably going to find their way into the playoff, even without being in the Big Ten championship game, which we can go into a long diatribe about how even a 1-loss Penn State might not be as deserving as some of the others because their schedule overall,
not that great this year. And the team that they had to beat to prove that they were legit, Ohio State, they lost to once again. So what do you think's going to happen when this team coasts into the playoffs? They're probably going to lose in the first round. James Franklin's record says it all. Number 2, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Now, looking at their schedule at the beginning of the year, you would have figured that Florida State and USC, who they have Florida State this week, they have USC to end the season, would be their toughest games on the way out. No and no. As a matter of fact, Florida State will be probably their easiest game on the way out. Virginia is next up after that. Then a tough one, a really tough one in Army, but that's one that they've usually controlled, and they've already beaten Navy this year, who runs the same kind of offense, and beat them very, very badly. So Notre Dame in the driver's seat to make the playoff, and they have more wiggle room than anyone going in because they're not in the conference. Life is good for the Catholics in Indiana right now. Number 1, Boise State. Down the stretch, the Fighting Genties have Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, and Oregon State. Those are all teams I do not think can stop this man. Or, if Maddox Madsen is really hot, stop him either. This is a team that gets better and better each week. They're very lethal. Do not mess with Boise State. I would not be surprised to see Boise State not only get into the playoff, but win their first game, especially if it's against Penn State. That is the top 5. I'm Paul Catalina. Adios. And I'll let the other 2 say goodbye right now.
Well, I mean, what's wrong with you joining us when we do say goodbye? So
I've already said it.
My YouTube page, not the show, but my YouTube page for the second consecutive day kind of just froze up on me. And I'm not so sure I didn't miss a lot of insults along the way. Now, thank you very much to our guests. Don't forget tonight at 10:30, 365 Sports Tonight. Appreciate all of our guests, all of our great sponsors. Thank you who watch us on Twitter, also through the app, Sikkim 365, or also on 365 Sports. So tonight, of course, enjoy your evening. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. We are loaded up with analysts for Utah, BYU, Colorado, plus Zach Gelb of what is CBS Sports, now Infinity Sports Network, and a lot more. And thanks to Emery Winter, Garrett Ross, Craig Smoak, and Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Thank you for your time every afternoon, 3 to 6, right here on 365 Sports.